There we go. All right. So, peace and shalom, family. Was good. It's Divine Prospect, Kingdom Harvard Ministries. All praise to the Most High. So right now, we got a special little session going on. Those of you who've been following Facebook, y'all know what's good. But before we get started, I need you to share this link. I need you to thumb up the video because you know it's about to go down. And let's just hope and pray that these Christians, they come out to play. All right. And there's no disrespect to my Christian audience and those who watch. This is not for most Christians. This is just for those Christians who are Christian apologists. And I mean, every time as an Israelite you say something, they're like coming at you. You know what I'm saying? So what I did was I said, hey, any Christians that want to debate with me tonight about the validity of the Good Friday and Easter Sunday, comment, let me know, and I'll allow you an opportunity to do so. So it was very difficult. I didn't really have nobody on my friends list, and I got a lot of Christians on my friends list. None of them responded. I'm certain it's because most of them are probably in church. So that's probably why they didn't respond. But there was a couple of people who were tagged in by other people. And no lies, about 50 something people were tagged on other posts and everything like that. A couple people was tagged in my posts. About 50, that's a lot of people. And out of those people, 3 people responded. And out of those 3 people, one person is willing to get on right now. And the other person, I don't know where he's at. And the third person, I don't know where he's at. He disappeared. So if they all decide that they want to do this, I'm going to let them all come on the panel and we're going to have a discussion, right? And it's just going to be me. All right. So just know as a preface, I'm a little sleepy. So my mental and verbal acuity may not be as sharp as it normally is. But nevertheless, because this is something that I'm familiar with, you know, like it's second nature. I mean, it's not a big deal for me. But I definitely would love to see them defend this. I know this is going to be interesting, right? All right, so this is something that is separate from our regular session. So what I'm going to do is, depending on timing, once I finish this discussion with these brothers, I'm going to end this session, and then I'm going to start another session and talk about regular topics that I would normally talk about on my Freestyle Friday. But I thought that this would be pretty appropriate, pretty much because, you know, today's Good Friday. You know what I'm saying? You put a man to death and you call it a good day. You know, that's really interesting. But anyway, well, he was supposed to die today. They got to show me how he died today. But nevertheless, the day that he died supposedly is a good day, right? I guess because he took the sins on the cross and everything. But yo, I need y'all to hit that like button, share this link. Let me see if the brother is still willing to join the discussion. I asked them, you know, sometimes I gotta be pleading with people, you know what I'm saying? Oh, okay. So I got a second Christian. This guy got his own ministry. All right, cool. All right, so we got 2 Christians. Let's see if they show up. This is pretty good. One of them was like, well, I don't really want to defend it, but I want to reason with you. I'm like, what? What you mean reason with me? You see what it's supposed to be a debate. Why you want to reason on it? You know what I'm saying? The other guy, he's saying that, yeah, we can discuss it, meaning that they don't want to debate it because they don't know, they're not sure what they're getting involved in yet, right? But it's all good. Let me make sure this other guy gets the link. All right, let's see. So they definitely have the advantage. It's going to be both of them against me. I'm half sleepy. They're probably well rested and ready. They probably got out of church not too long ago. You know what I'm saying? So they probably, you know, they probably got the spirit on them and they're ready to get it in. So that's what's up. You know, like I said, this is no disrespect to my Christian audience or the people that I know who I rock with or real Christians, because a lot of the Christians that I know, they know, like, yo, Good Friday, Easter Sunday, man, we don't even rock with that. And a lot of them tell me it's just tradition. That's why they do it. You know what I'm saying? They're not going to the church fathers with them, you know. But even before we get into the church fathers, I tell people the church fathers is really your Christian halakha. Like how people walk out the New Testament, people think they're just getting it strictly from the word, like sola scriptura, but they really getting that from tradition. You know what I'm saying? And they're just not aware of it. So what I do is I just bring out the facts. Hey, look at this. Look at this. Look, what do you think about this? This is before you came on the scene believing that. So have you tried to critically analyze your presuppositions in order to determine whether or not what it is that you believe in is something that's coming strictly from your own investigation or something that was handed down for you and you was told to believe it? Which one is it? You know what I'm saying? So that's what we want to see what's going on right now. So anyway, I send the invites out to both of them right now. They both have the links. I'm waiting for them to click on the link and log in so we can have this discussion. Again, like I said, this is no shout out to any of my Christian audiences out there. If you're a Christian and you believe in my faith and in Christ, hey, more power to you. You know what I'm saying? What I simply want to do is I want to get Christians to try and explain to me and reason to me how you get Good Friday and how you get Easter Sunday and how that's 3 days and 3 nights. Or 3 nights and 3 days. Like how does that work? Right? Maybe I'm missing something. If I am, you know what I'm saying, I'm willing to hear what they got to say and we can deal with it, right? So we're gonna definitely go into the scripture. Definitely go into scripture. And like I said, I think this is a good session for those who are Christians or people who are interested in it. But make sure you share this link. Shout out to everybody that was in the debate that I had yesterday. We had like 315 people. It peaked that joined in on the discussion. So I definitely appreciate y'all support on that. This one should have way more people because, you know, Christians, you know, y'all need to send this to Christians. All right. Any of your Christian friends, family members, loved ones, they need to be watching this right now. All right. So I need y'all to post this everywhere. Okay. I mean, Yoel, you said, why is this a topic that people that's going to church today? They believe this is Good Friday. Shema, this is water with ice. All right. This is spring water with ice. Shout out to Dennis McMillian in the building, Patricia Thomas, Mika One, Andrew Graham, Vaught Parker was good, Jared Blackburn, Straight Noe Chaser, Yoel Yisrael, Sean McGee, Hanok Israel, Clarence Scripps, Kangan Water. Is that Joel? Joel, let me know if that's you. I don't know if that's him. I'm not sure. Shout out to my brother Chris moderating. My brother Brian in building, Andrea Wright. Ace was good. Isu, Shifta. Oh man. All right. You be on your best behavior, all right? Jason Morrison, no, definitely not. She's not about that life. Definitely not about that life. So yo, I'm waiting on, I don't know what they're doing right now. See, this is the problem, right? Like I get so nervous because I'm like, yo, are they gonna join in? Like I did doing a whole live for no reason. Because to be honest with y'all, I was gonna go into the history, I was gonna go into the scriptures, I was gonna go into the church fathers. I really had something planned that I was just gonna do on the fly for y'all and break down Good Friday and Easter Sunday and the timing and everything like that. And there's some scholars that have done work trying to justify this. You know what I'm saying? I was going to go into that tonight, but I said, you know what? It'll be even better if I have somebody on the opposite end that can, in real time, defend this claim, right? So right now, we're still waiting. Still waiting. Just like I didn't think the brother was going to show up yesterday. He showed up. And I give him credit for the heart that he had and his passion. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, I had to scale it down and scale it back immensely. I had to scale it back. I realized that, you know, when somebody's, you know, where somebody is here, like you got to meet them there. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't try to go above where they at. You know what I'm saying? You got to meet them where they at. So I scaled back a lot. And as y'all see, I didn't really bring out any resources or anything. You know what I'm saying? Because, I mean, you know who it is that you rapping with, and you can tell like, okay, well, I know I don't want to inundate a person with all these, you know, source citations and, you know, references and, you know, actual breakdown. He's gonna say, "Oh, we need a Hebrew scholar." Never claimed to be Hebrew scholar, but I know Hebrew. You know what I'm saying? So I started going into the Hebrew. Again, I guess he wasn't aware of. I mean, and he's not even my Facebook friend. He's just somebody that jumped on my post, and he's done that a few times before in the past, right? And as he admitted, he never watched any of my videos. He just saw me from time to time on Facebook, and I think he's seen me on Sidnet or whatever. And it's those type of people who don't realize all of the massive work that I've done. So it's a little bit difficult for them to kind of like have some leverage because they're thinking, I don't know what they be thinking when they come to have a dialogue with me. I guess they think that I'm unlearned or something like that. I don't know. I don't know. Nevertheless, I'm still waiting for these Christians. Don't know where they at. I have no clue what's going on right now. Y'all go get your boys so we can have this dialogue. I don't know what's going on. I'm start shouting out names on Facebook, and y'all go find them for me. All right. So let me shout out these names on Facebook because I need y'all to hit their inbox up, let them know what's up. Oh, okay, got you, Ezekiel. No doubt. I don't know where these dudes is at, man. So let me call their names out. All right. One of the guys' names is LP like Paul. The other one is Jeremiah Daniel Davis. All right. So, these are the name receipts. So you'll go find them. All right. You'll go find them. Here, let me put their names out here in the chat. That's one of the guys right there. Let me get the other dude. All right. Shout out to the people who tagged them to have this discussion because nobody on my friends list was trying to have this dialogue. You know what I mean? All right. Now I'm having the same issue I had before where they like the link is not working. So let me help them out. Let me help them out. All right. Here we go. That's the other dude's name. So you'll go flood their inbox with messages right now and let them know to jump up in this live. Make sure they're not making excuses going to sleep or, saying they still stuck in church or something like that. Make sure they're here so we can have this dialogue, right? Civil dialogue. Let me get their, I don't know why that's happening. Let me get the email address. Other ones probably having the same issue. So those of you who have Facebook, hit them up, man. Hit them up. Hit them up. Even if you got to do it multiple times, hit them up, man. Make sure they're here. All right. Make sure they're in the building and we having this dialogue, man. All right. So again, I'm not gonna say play stupid, but I'm gonna play ignorant, right? I want them to teach me this doctrine. Like I want them to teach it to me. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm gonna act like a student. I'm gonna ask a lot of critical questions. You know what I'm saying? I may bring up some references. I'm definitely gonna go into the scriptures, but I need them to teach me. You feel me? Like, so Andrew Graham, the software I'm using right now is Google Hangouts. I'm not using XSplit. Yeah, Hangouts. I'm not using XSplit until I figure out how to sync it with Google Hangouts. And again, I'm gonna start trialing Zoom, but so far I like XSplit. But when I have these type of sessions, I can't really do it. But we'll see. We'll see. So shout out to Andrew Graham in the building. Amar Yahoo Ban Yasharala was good. Shalom. Awolma. AWOL MMA, my bad. Naphtali, Exiled, Hebrew Princess, Kelly Rivers in the building. Let me see. Anybody else want to shout out? Hit one. Again, share this link, hit the thumbs up. You know it's about to go down. Bakar the Israelite was goody. The chosen few in the building. All right, so we pretty lit tonight, man. That was interesting. One was good. Yo, even if you sleeping or half tired or whatever, put this on and you listen to it while you go to sleep. All right. So when you wake up in the morning, you're like, man, I learned a lot. Feel what I'm saying? Because the theta waves will be active during that time while you're sleeping or half sleep or whatever the case may be, and then it'll soak in, the resonance of the words or the frequency of the words, and then the resonance of it will lock in with your ruach. All right, when you wake up in the morning, play it if your kids is around. All right, If you're in church right now, put headphones in your phone. And put it in your ears and listen to this right now. All right. You know what I'm saying? I don't care if you're at the altar right now or if you're in a pulpit, even if you're in a pulpit. All right. Play this slow as well. Everybody, we need to have a discussion about this, right? And again, it's not about ridiculing nobody, about disrespecting anybody or anything like that. Please hit their inbox up on Facebook. Flood their inbox on Facebook. Here, let me give you the link. Send them this link. All right, hold on. Let me give you the link. Send them this link. Here's the link. I want y'all to send them this link. All right. I want no excuses. No excuses. They may be like, oh, I couldn't get in. So nah. Send me your email. That's why I'm asking them. Now I'm going to inbox them. I'm going to inbox them. That's always something, man. Always something. All right, that's the link right there. Y'all saying the link is not working. Y'all say that, but when I click on it, it's working. I don't understand. I don't know why that's happening, but hold on. Hold on, let me see what's going on. I have no clue what's going on right now. The link should be working. I click on it, it's working. Anybody else? Y'all click on the link. Let me know if the link is working. All right. Shout out to Jay New in the building saying this is the first time tuning in. Enjoy yourself. All right. Strap that seatbelt up and make sure you hold on. It's going to be an interesting ride. All right. And definitely, once this is over, go back on this channel. There's over 200 plus videos on all types of subject matters. Y'all go ahead and check it out. All right. Y'all crazy. So y'all saying the link is not working. I don't know why the link is not working. It's working for me. But you know what? Let me do this. If I can get their email address, I'll just add them, right? So if y'all can, let me see if this is the same or this is different. This looks different. Hold on. All right. Hey, try this. Y'all try this link. Try this link. Try that link. Let me know if that link works. Try that link, y'all. Try that link. And I'm going to send them that link too. All right. Y'all send them that link. Send them that link. That should be it right there. Again, I don't want no excuses. Y'all click on that link. And if somebody jumps in, I might have to kick y'all out. Because I know y'all out for blood. Y'all really want to see blood, man. Really want to see blood. All right. So that link works. Y'all saying that link works? All right, cool. Y'all send it over to those two people, man. One of the guys' name is what's his name? Like Paul, something like that. So I guess this guy is gonna be the next best thing next to Paul. This guy's like, yo, my name is I'm like Paul. I'm like, yo, that's what's up. Guys like Paul. That's what I'm talking about. So there we go. All right. Andrew. What's up, Andrew? What's up, Andrew?
I'm in.
You in? Andrew?
Yeah, I'm in.
Hey, how you doing?
Sorry, not too bad. If I have YouTube open, it's going to give an echo.
Oh, okay. I hear what you're saying. All right, no doubt. All right, I just wanted to make sure the link works. Thank you for testing it and jumping in. I appreciate that. So, if you want, when we do the after show, I can invite you on and we can wrap if you want. So, but for
I was just going to come on if nobody else was going to come on because I have an idea. Because I also happen to be a Christian.
Oh yeah. I know. That's what I was saying. Like, I was gonna wait because the other two individuals, like, they ready. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that you're.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm just saying that they're ready, and I want to have the dialogue with them. So yeah. So keep rocking with us. I got you. But
Cool. I'll mute.
all right.
I'll
Cool.
mute and I'll close camera.
All right. Cool. Kenneth. Who's Kenneth? Kenneth. Kenneth. Who's Kenneth? I don't understand who. Kenneth. Kenneth. Okay, he dropped out. I hope that wasn't one of them. I don't know what's going on right now. Hold on. All right. Here we go. That link works, so I'm gonna use that one. Going forward, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do that going forward, all right? Here we go. All right. So now I just did an open invitation. All right. So again, y'all hit the like button, y'all hit subscribe. If y'all enjoying this session and y'all want to support or donate, I'll put those details in the chat. I don't know what's going on right now. Shout out to my brother Aslam Mahdi in the building. What's goody? Shout out to Coy Walker, Kenneth Lopez. Kenneth, was that you? That was you. All right, cool, no doubt. My brother Dylan McCormack in the building. John Johnson. Dylan's all the way from Australia. Get Wise in the building. Bezaliel Yisrael. What's up? Yirmiyahu Yehuda. So I'm still waiting. I don't know what's going on. I gave him the right link. Let's see, fam. Sorry. So while we waiting on them, I don't know what's going on. While we waiting on them, if you have any quick questions, anything like that, let me address that. So yeah. So V the Wolf V, shalom to you as well. Again, hit that thumbs up button. Share this link everywhere. I don't care where a person is at. They need to be listening to this right now. Because I want to see this. I really want to see this get defended. Shout out to the Most High Lion in the building. Michael Woodard was good. Clarence Scripps.
It's working.
Okay, that's my brother Hanok. I appreciate that, my brother, for checking to make sure it's working. Cool Kev in the building. What's up? So yeah, y'all flood them with that link, man. Flood their inbox with that link, please. All of y'all, hit them up, flood them with that link. I don't want no excuses, man, because you know how people do. Let's go. My brother, Sham Strowman was like, yo, you be giving out all kinds of smoke. Listen, I don't give smoke out like that. Like, you know what I'm saying? It comes like a couple of times every year. You know what I'm saying? For the most part, I try to stay focused unless I have to address something. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to C.Y. Lee, Terry Lael in the building, Henry Campbell, Dirty 30, Ariyahu Yisrael, TJ Max 100, Mr. Born Again was goody. Y'all smash that like button and you share this with everybody right now. Flood every group that you know with this. Any Christian friends, family members, you inbox them, you email them, you text this to them. All right? They need to be here. All right? This is more important than them being in church right now. I'm telling you. Because, hey, if what they're doing is an error, then there's no need for them to be in a church right now. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Kenneth Lopez. Thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate that. If you want to donate, you can also hit that super chat button there and do your donations there as well. Let me see. The Chosen Few says, is it possible that inspired texts are still being written today, or did inspired texts stop with the Bible we have now? So, being that the Israelites are out of the land, they've been dispersed out of the land, and it's very difficult now to verify information from anybody that claims to be an Israelite. If I write a book, an article, or even do this channel, you could say that it's inspired. Is it inspired the same way as the written text? No, it's inspired the same way as the ancestors, who left their archaeological record behind. No, it's different types of inspiration, right? There's going to be a hierarchy as it pertains to inspiration. You know what I'm saying? So again, anything that we do, say, or whatever, it can be tested for inspiration if it's derived from, an alignment of both, the archaeological, the historical, and the scriptural record that we have in history from the ancestors. You feel what I'm saying? So hopefully that was a brief, quick to answer that question. Shout out to D Red in the building. Hey, I don't know what's going on with them, man. Are y'all inboxing them? Oh yeah, everybody has Facebook. Please inbox them. Please inbox them. I don't want them to go nowhere, man. Please inbox them. Please inbox them. Please. Please. I don't want them going nowhere. The other guy says LP like Paul. Whatever that means. He has an LP like Paul, or like a record like Paul. Is he saying his swag is like Paul? I don't know what that means. Like, I would love for him to answer that. Like, I gotta find out like what this guy, what's that mean? If y'all want to see what they look like as well on Facebook, let me know. And again, this is not random people that I'm calling out. These are people who agreed to this discussion. So we just waiting on them. And this has been what, 25 minutes already? It's crazy. 25 minutes. It's not even Good Friday anymore. I don't know what's going on, man. Okay. I don't know what's up. Oh, Andrew, mute your mic real quick, please.
Hang on. I want to say there was an article that I came across the other day.
Okay.
I don't know if I can post it as a link, and I was going to ask if I could before I did.
Yeah, go ahead if you want. That's fine.
If I can find it again, that is.
Yeah, you good.
Because I was talking, we were talking about this yesterday, actually.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Anyway, I'll find it. I'll see if I can.
All right, appreciate that, Andrew. All right, so Shema, he just joined in. How come y'all from the chat? I know y'all dedicated, you're gonna jump in this, but y'all know this is not for y'all until the second session when we get the after session and we can wrap. But I don't know. I'm waiting on these people, man. I even sent out a general link on that thread, for anybody else that was on there. Shout out to Isha Moore in the building. Appreciate your donation. My brother D Red, thank you for your donation as well. Appreciate that. If you want to shout out, hit one. The Hope W says you can't hate on the Christian if you believe the same thing. Don't know what you mean about that. Exactly. My brother Assalam Mahdi, he already know what it is, so he can address the Hulk W, or whoever else want to address him, y'all can address him. Obviously, he must be new here, even though I've seen his avatar and his name before. So maybe he's not new. I don't know. I have no clue. But somebody highlight him, give him some insight, and then I'll probably address them if nobody else joins in. I have no clue what's going on right now. I knew people were always going to make excuses, man. Always going to make excuses. I inboxed them. I asked them for the email. There's other people on this thread that's also reminding them. I don't know what's going on, man. Are y'all inboxing them? Please inbox them. Shout out to my brother Kwaku, Danielle in the building. Yeah, y'all definitely inbox them. Please inbox them. Please. Otherwise, I'm just going to have to just end this, and then we're just going to have our normal Freestyle Friday wrap. Man, y'all disappointing 200 people, man. I don't know what's going on right now, man. I'm really disappointed. My brother Hanok even said you joining the conversation. I don't know what's going on right now. And it's two of them. So one of them clearly can just join in. I don't know what's going on. Okay, so I'm gonna directly inbox him again. I don't know what's going on right now, man. I bet D-Red, but I'm waiting. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Shalom.
Shalom, shalom. Real quick, I just went on my phone and I clicked the link. Like I did it on I'm on my iPad right now.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to go on my iPad, but when I just clicked that link, which actually works through my iPad, it didn't work through my phone. So that's what I'm wondering if, you know what I'm saying? I don't get it. I don't understand it, man.
Is it giving you a message when you click on it on your phone?
Yeah, on my phone it says, let me do it again real quick. It
All
says
right.
web page not available, but on my iPad it went through, as you can see, and I'm sure on computers it does too. So I'm wondering if these people are clicking on their phone, maybe. I don't
Well,
get.
there was two links, right? The first link that I sent out is the one that's actually the URL that's actually here within the Google Hangouts window.
Right.
And then the second one I sent out is one that sends a direct permanent link, right? That can go straight to an email, or you can copy and paste it. So when I went to that one, the invite, that one works because that's the one that you joined in, Andrew joined in, the other brother Kenneth joined in. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that one works. I don't know which one you were clicking on. Are you clicking on the last link that I sent?
I clicked on the one on my iPad, and I digress after this. The one on my iPad, I went on my Facebook, I believe, on your on the post.
Yeah.
Clicked it from my iPad, and it took me to this. But when I just went on my phone, because I was about to copy it and then go to his direct message, LP like Paul, and do it like you just said, send it to them or whatever, it didn't work. If you can, not trying to put no pressure on you, send me an inbox, because I'm definitely about to send it to these guys, because
I got you.
everybody want to see this. So I'm about to mute myself. I just wanted to come on.
I got people inboxing me right now. I'm trying to like close them out while I'm about to talk, but I appreciate that. Let me go ahead. I'm gonna send it. I'm gonna post it again. I'm gonna post it in the link. I can inbox it to you too, but let me post it in the link. It's right there, and let me inbox it to you too. Hold on.
Okay, I'm gonna mute myself, but I'm gonna try to, send it to the people you said.
All right, cool. Appreciate it.
Everybody want to see this. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Now hold on. Inbox it to you too. Hold on. Oh.
Okay, I'm gonna mute myself, but I'm gonna try to, send it.
All right, cool. Appreciate it. Oh, okay. So Deshaun, what's up? Yep. Now,
What's good, man?
What's going on? Why are you hearing echo? Is that your phone out? All right, cool. Appreciate it. Is that your phone? Are you on your phone or your laptop?
I'm on my laptop.
Okay. Testing. Okay, no feedback.
Can you hear me?
Cool. Yeah, I can hear you. So peace, my brother. Thank you for joining in. I appreciate that. I know it's late. It's like after midnight right now. The invite went out to two other people that were supposed to be on this panel, but for whatever reason, they're having some difficulty. It seems like you got in fine, no problem. But I know you had you was on the brother Deshaun's page, right? Calvin Deshaun, and Daylon Branch had tagged you, right?
Yeah, Delon tagged me, and I was just seeing what was what.
Okay, cool. So did you see the title?
Let me look at it. Yeah, I didn't really know what you meant by validity of Good Friday and Easter Sunday. I don't know if you meant about the days or the whole Easter culture or what.
Yeah, so it was mostly trying to validate the notion of a resurrection on Sunday and a crucifixion on a Friday, and being able to validate that historically, scripturally, and extra biblically, if you have any other means of using interdisciplinary means of supporting that position, whether that's church father or whether that's any kind of scholarly citations, you know what I'm saying? So that's pretty much what the offer was, for somebody to verify internally and validate externally, right? So if you're able to do that, I definitely want to give you the floor so we can listen in, because this is something that a lot of people have been wrestling with for some time and have been having a difficulty trying to accept, right? So I just wanted somebody who was pretty adept in the text to be able to convey that to us coherently, so that way we can absorb it and we can ponder on it and we can critically analyze it and try to apply it to see if your line of reasoning actually lines up with what we've been looking at. So you got
So as for so the Christian stance would be to prove that he died on Friday, was in the grave 2 days arose Sunday.
3 days, 3 nights. Yeah, correct.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think it's 3 days, 3 nights. I think that's a Hebraic colloquialism. So like,
Yeah.
hold on, let me try to get a Bible or something, because I can't I can't cite scripture like that. I gotta look stuff up.
That's all good. Yeah, take your time. I'm gonna give you the floor.
Yeah, if anyone else wants to talk and throw ideas while I look up stuff, y'all can go ahead and do that. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm tired. I just got back from my niece and nephew's birthday.
Oh no, it's all good. I'm tired as well, so I can definitely relate. I had a long day also. So yeah, so take your time, man. It's all good. Like I said, I'm just grateful that you joined in. Waiting on, like I said, 2 other people, and you know, they're probably using the fact that they can't get in as an excuse not to join. So I appreciate you joining. Are you familiar with this channel or no?
I saw the only thing that I've seen of you, and it was only a glimpse, but I think Vocab Malone came to see you like not too long ago.
Oh, okay.
And I saw like I think it was a live chat of y'all, and I didn't really watch it because I'm new to even following Vocab myself, but
okay,
yeah.
cool. All right, cool. No doubt. All right, so go ahead. I'm gonna give you the floor.
I'm trying to. Matter of fact, I got the internet right at my fingertips.
Hey, Divine, while he's doing that, what camera do you have, man? That camera is ridiculous.
My bad. You talking about the webcam I'm on right now?
Yeah, that camera is like ridiculous. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it can actually be better than this, but I didn't configure the video output to 4K, which I'm playing around with XSplit. But this is the Logitech Brio 4K, right? So it's a 4K webcam by Logitech. I don't know if you've heard of the Brio before, BRIO, but it's really good. That lecture that I did, how do we walk it out? I recorded it from this webcam in 1080p. The next one I'm doing, which is next Saturday, I'm gonna record that in 4K to see how that comes out, and then I'll upload it for y'all. So y'all can still watch in like 720, 480, whatever bandwidth that you're afforded to check it out. But it's really good. I want to get a second one so that way I don't have to move it from my desktop and use it on my laptop, because I'm moving from my desktop to my laptop. So I might purchase another one. It retails for $199.99, so it's about $200. So it's not a cheap webcam, but it's a great investment, right? Is the build quality is excellent. You know, the lens on it is great. It also can do, and I've been trying it out. It can do like a virtual green screen for you as well. I mean, there's a lot of tweaks on it too. They have this new software, Logitech called Logitech Capture, and it allows you to do a lot of different tweaks with it. And that's what I use to record that actual lecture. So yeah, I appreciate that. So yes, if you're interested in it, it's a Logitech Brio 4K, and y'all can check it out. So no doubt.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So are you ready, Deshaun?
Sure.
All right, cool.
So in Matthew 27 verses 63.
Matthew 27, 63.
I'll start at 62. The next day, that is, after the day of preparation, the chief priests and the Pharisees gathered before Pilate and said, "Sir, we remember how the impostor said that while he was still alive, after 3 days I will rise. Therefore, order the tomb to be made secure until the 3rd day." So there should be some understanding of the meaning of after 3 days being including the 3rd day, because it makes no sense to say, and if he's going to be in the grave for 3 days, it would be guard the tomb until after the 3rd day, not until the 3rd day. And so I think there seems to be some understanding that even the guards, even Pilate understood that Jews considered part of a whole day as a day itself. So like if I were to start a fast, what's today, Friday, and to end it Sunday, I can say I fasted for 3 days. because I am including Friday. I'm including the day that I'm starting. Does that make sense? Even if it's not, even if it's not the entire day.
I got you. I'm following you. So you said that you believe that it's a Hebraic colloquialism, right? So it would be, you're saying that at that time period, so we're going to speak contextually and historically, right? And culturally, since you said it's Hebraic. So if it's a Hebraic colloquialism, colloquialism is just something that is a phrase that is used commonly, right, amongst the people. So if the people used 3 days and 3 nights as a Hebrew colloquialism, are you saying that they believe that when Jonah was in the whale, it was a symbolic period of time and it wasn't literally 3 days and 3 nights as was alluded by Yeshua or Jesus?
Well, I'm saying, so like by saying 3 days and 3 nights, it could be an actual literal 3 days and 3 nights, but it could also be something shorter than that if it includes part of the day included. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. So what is your basis for saying that it can also be half a day and that could be considered a full day?
Well, I mean, if you look at Genesis, the first day is 12 hours, and it's also a day is considered 24 hours as well.
So when you say Genesis, so in the book of Genesis, you're saying it says that a day is 24 hours?
Yeah, I mean, created day and night. A day is, I mean, Jesus himself says, are there not 12 hours in a day? He could also say, are there not 24 hours in a day?
Gotcha. So this is how we're going to work that, right? So a day is from sunrise to sunset. So in ancient Israel time, Iron Age period, the way that they reckon time would be when the sun rises and when the sun sets. Now, if we look at Israel and we look at what meteorologists analyze as far as the environmental and as far as the cumulus layer of the clouds, by looking at the clouds, because you also hear where Jesus talking to Pharisees and say, hey, you can discern the clouds. It's a certain layer of clouds that they're looking at to determine if it's going to rain or not. But in observing the weather and observing the seasons of the year, you'll see that every day is not an exact 12 hours, right? They have an equilux and an equinox there. You have a vernal equinox, and then you have your autumnal equinox, right? And they also have solstices there as well. They may not be as the way that we have it here in certain areas in the US because we're on a different part of the globe, but they don't have a perfect 12 hours. Now, let me address what Jesus said. When Jesus says, are there not 12 hours in a day? Jesus is referring to the Roman method of reckoning time. So in Roman time, as you know, you'll see in the scriptures, they have different watches, right? And it's watches of night, because you don't need watches during the day because the sun is out, but you need watches as period of times at night so you can chart from when the sun sets and when the sun rises, so you know when to start your shift the next day. So according to the Julian calendar, which would have been used during that time period, you have a 12-hour period of reckoning that was considered the daytime. Whether or not you had some nightfall that came a little earlier or a little later, right? Or the day started a little early, a little later, they still reckon time on what's called not a relative dating, but absolute dating. That's the same thing that's used now with the Gregorian calendar and the way we reckon time today. So Hebraically, his reference was not referring to what ancient Israel would have been following. It's based on the captivity it was under and the time period, a day of reckoning, the way that they reckon time during that period of time in the 1st century CE, right? So in Genesis does not give us a time of day because it's relative. So relative dating is something that you'll typically see in ancient Israel time periods, right? So a relative dating as opposed to absolute dating. Relative dating is when you date something according to an event, and it's for the lifespan of that event that something is dated towards. An example of that would be when you see where it says in the 10th year of the reign of Josiah. So that means that now the time that they're counting is based on the time in which Josiah started reigning. And then now they count the years or the cycles from one season to another to reckon time to say, when we get to that 10th year in the reign of Josiah, this is when this incident happened. Now, if this was our reckoning of time today, and we put ourselves anachronistically back then we would have said, oh, this is June 12th of 2017. You know what I'm saying? So that's absolute dating, is when you have a way of reckoning time, irregardless of events that occur. So it's two different ways of reckoning, and that kind of understanding of synchronistic time and relative sequential time we get when we have the Greco-Roman period. Now we look at Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great, he changed from the calendar that he used, which is the Macedonian calendar, because they also had the Athenian calendar, a couple other calendars, when they went into Babylon and they encountered the Chaldean priests. And then from the Chaldean priests and that interface, they adopted that reckoning of time. And then he took that information and he gave it to his administrators. And then now they set up their way of reckoning time, all the way until we get to the point where we have Julius Caesar comes on the scene. And now we have a different reckoning of time in regards to the Romans. And then later on, we get the Gregorian calendar reckoning of time that we utilize today. So the presumption is when there's something that we believe to be a fact, when it's the case that we haven't really challenged it to examine if it's really true or not. An assumption is you don't know if it's a fact, you're just giving a guess, and then you're putting it forth as if it can be a fact, right? So the presumption would be to believe that a day is the same way that we think now, which is incorrect, because when we go back and we look at sundials that's been used in ancient Israel during that time period, we see that the way they reckon time is based on how the shadow is cast against the gnome for the sundial. Some of them did not have gnomes. And that will help to determine that they actually reckon time based on where the shadow would hit, as opposed to having an absolute period of time, which is something that you can write a calendar and know, okay, well, I could just follow this calendar and know what time of the day it is and what year it is, etc., when they didn't have that during that time. That's also could be something called a gloss in linguistics. When we look at something like, for example, in the Old Testament, we use the word book, like the book of this and the book of that. Well, at that time, they didn't have books. Right? We didn't get books till after the 1st century CE. And actually the first books that we understand that was actually created was made by Christians. And this was called codices, right? Prior to that, you had what's called scrolls. So anytime you called a scroll in that period of time a book, that's called a linguistic gloss, because what we're doing is we're taking something that we understand today and anachronistically applying to something at that time period. Whereas if we said the word sefer, which means what we translate to be book, back then they would have to understand what a book is, because they've never seen that, right? So when it comes to reckoning time, that's also extremely important. So I'm trying to set the stage, because within those parameters, I would love for you to operate to try and explain to us why during the 1st century Roman time period, the Yahudim that's there would reckon 3 days and 3 nights as a colloquialism, as opposed to something that they would have believed literally based on the story of Yonah that they were told, and something that was carried on or as an oral tradition, or even written, that was held by the priests up to that time period. I just want to know if you have a basis for that within Scripture, and if not, if you can go outside of Scripture and maybe lean on some of the church fathers' writings or some kind of scholastic work that can help to substantiate what it is that you're saying. I think that'll make it a bit more clear for the audience that's watching. So I'm gonna mute and let you rock. So give me 1 second. Let me mute, and the floor is yours.
So the reason that I think that 3 days can mean, 72 hours, or a part of one day and then a part of 2 other days, in addition to the verse that I just gave, another example would be in Esther 15 to Esther 4:15 to Esther 5:1, and I can just go ahead and read that. Then Esther told them to reply to Mordecai, "Go gather all the Jews to be found in Susa, and hold fast on my behalf, and do not eat or drink for 3 days, day or night. I and my young women will also fast as you do. Then I will go to the king, though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish." Mordecai then went away and did everything as Esther had ordered him. On the 3rd day, Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the king's palace. And so she just said that, she's going to do this for 3 days, and then she's going to do it. And then in chapter 5, verse 1, it says on the 3rd day. And another example I have of being like for a certain amount of time, and then on the last day, is 1 Kings 20:29. I'm gonna go ahead and try to find that. Hold on, give me 1 second. Turn in your Bibles to blah 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 blah.
That's good. I like your character. You keep it interesting. That's good.
Where is it? And they encamped on the opposite side another 7 days. Then on the 7th day of battle, And so this is an example of when you have for X amount of time and then on X, if that makes any sense. And I think there's even another example in the Jewish Talmud that includes an example similar to that. I don't have that at the ready right now.
No,
but that's the reason that I believe that.
I have the Talmud if you want to reference it. So I have it as well.
But I don't really know where it is. I'd have to Google it or something.
Okay,
but
cool.
But those are the biblical examples for my reasoning of thinking that, you know, something can be for 3 days and be on the third day, if that makes sense.
So let me ask you a question. And that's a good point. I was going to address it, but I figured let me move forward because we can kind of stretch out the discussion and touch as many points as we can before the time is up. And again, thank you for joining in. My next question would be for you is when the scripture that you referenced, which was Matthew chapter 27 or Matthew chapter 27, right?
You fancy.
What'd you say?
I said you fancy.
That's just how I talk. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know, man. You all educated.
I'm actually a college dropout, but I appreciate that. So if you go to Matthew chapter 27, verse 62, right? It says the next day, the one after preparation day. What is the preparation day there within that context in verse 62?
It's been a while since I've looked at this, to be honest. Isn't this during the?
This is called Freestyle Friday, so we just freestyling.
Yeah. Isn't this, now correct me if I'm wrong, isn't this the week where it's like it's a double Sabbath week or something like that?
And that's what people say. Yeah. So you would say there's a high Sabbath, and then you would say there's your weekly Sabbath. So the high Sabbath would be the period of time in which you rest that is not the same as your weekly Sabbath. So according to if we go into Vayikra or Leviticus chapter 16, chapter 23, and Devarim or Deuteronomy chapter 16, what it does is that it lays out for you the various feast days, and it tells you, like, for example, you have Passover, Pesach, right? And then the next day would be your unleavened bread, or what's called Hag Ha-Matzah. So Hag just means feast in Hebrew. Ha is a definite article, the, and Matzah, as you know.
Somebody call me. Am I using what? Yeah. I'm in a discussion right now at Google Hangout. Close the door. Yeah, I don't want to wake y'all. Sorry.
All right, you there?
Yeah, I'm back.
I lost you for a second. Okay, no problem. So what I was saying was, Hag means feast. Ha Matzah, Ha is the definite article in Hebrew, and then Matzah, as you know, is like unleavened bread, right? So you had what's called a preparation day, and then you had what's called the high Sabbath. So what happened was during this period of time, the first 3 days, you would find the lamb without spot, without blemish. You would examine that lamb to make sure it didn't have any kind of, issues with it or any imperfections. And then on the middle of that time period, or the middle of the week, what people would say, you would actually slay the lamb, not on the night portion of Passover, but you would do so as it's approaching the evening. So I'll give you an example of time reckoning so you can follow me, right? So when you look at how Israelites reckon time, their day begins in the evening, right? So it begins at sunset, right? And in Hebrew, you have the word erev. Erev means the twilight period of time in which the day is transitioned into night. And the nighttime will be called Layla, which means darkness, right? And then you'd have daylight, which could be the word Yom, or Yom can also include a full, what you would call, 24-hour time period. But during this time period, when the evening came in of that middle of the week period, or that middle period of time, that evening would start Passover or Pesach, right? Now, once the evening came, no work would be done outside in the field because, they didn't have electricity and night lamps and, whatever that we have today, right? Artificial light. So everything would be exclusive to indoors, right? So And that evening, that lamb, they would give that lamb like its final meal, you know what I'm saying? And then the next day, during a day period of time, they would get all their work out the way, because they know that once that next day ends, so then Hebrew time period, again, is from the evening, from the time that the twilight is transitioning from day to night. And it's 3 layers of evening, right? You have what's called your civil twilight, you have what's called your nautical twilight, and you have what's called your astronomical twilight, right? So civil twilight means that it's transitioning to darkness, but it's still enough light outside for you to do work. Nautical twilight means it's getting much darker, but it's a time period in which the sailors on the sea, or somebody's piloting a ship on the sea, will be able to see the stars, right? So nautical is referencing like sailors, so you'll be able to see the stars more apparent, and you use the stars for navigation. And astronomical twilight is really when it's extremely dark to the point where there's little to no light and not much can be done, period, right? So during that period of time, your astronomical twilight is where it will usher in the beginning of a day in regards to Hebraic understanding, as you have referenced in Genesis chapter 1. So then that would be your Passover evening, right? That would start the beginning of the day, and that's where they would feed the lamb and make sure he had his final meal. And then that next day, which will begin when you have your morning twilight, and your morning twilight would be the reverse, your astronomical, almost full darkness, to nautical, to your civil. And during that civil twilight period of time is when now people go outside and say, okay, we got to start our work, right? So that during that period of time, you would get all the work in, because when that evening starts to hit, you're going to have to take that lamb and you're going to have to slay that lamb. And then you're going to have to roast that lamb. And then you have to eat that lamb with your bitter herbs and with your unleavened bread. Now that evening that begins the next day in Hebraic reckoning of time, that evening would be the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So the daylight portion, where you typically will have, like in our period of business hours is 9 to 5, right? For them, it would be sunrise to sunset. So sunrise from that civil twilight to sunset during that evening twilight. So during that period of time, there is where they would cease from work and they wouldn't do any work. So when you see something that says, what we will call like the high Sabbath, it would be that unleavened bread time period that would be distinct from the weekly Sabbath, right? So that's why I just wanted to, I was just asking you in regards to the preparation day, because now we're going to see a lot of interesting things if we go to like Mark chapter 14, right? So if you go to Mark chapter 14 real quick, if you want to comment real quick on something, you can, but otherwise, I just want to bring you to Mark chapter 14.
Oh, I mean, you can keep going. I mean, I'm really here. I'm really here to learn, to be honest.
Okay, yeah, no doubt. So in Mark chapter 14, it says, now the Passover and
where you at?
Mark chapter 14, verse 1.
Oh, 1. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a big chapter.
Yeah, right. So it says, now the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread were 2 days away. And the chief priests and scribes were looking for a covert way to arrest Jesus and kill him. They said, but not during the feast, they said, or they may be a riot amongst the people. So now they said that they did not want to arrest them during the feast day. So you don't feast in Passover, you feast on that first day of unleavened bread. So they're saying to themselves, well, we're going to get him. And we know that the feast, because during this time period in 1st century CE, and we get this when we look in Josephus and we look in Philo, we see that the reckoning of Passover and unleavened bread were like considered almost like the one and the same thing, right? Whereas when they first received it from Moshe at Sinai,
you said, wait, I'm sorry, you said Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread are considered the same thing?
It would be considered like almost the same thing, right? One and the same thing, according to Philo's writings, Philo of Alexandria and Josephus, right? But prior to that, let's say before the Israelites were in, or the Yahudim or the Jews were in Roman captivity, when they were in their sovereignty from the time that they left from Sinai all the way into the exile, it was reckoned separately. And we see this when we look in Deuteronomy chapter 16 and Leviticus chapter 23, as well as Exodus chapter 12, right? Exodus chapter 12 is going to be the staple text that everything else will be collapsed onto, because that is actually the instructions for the feast within the narrative, right? Before the Israelites left out of Egypt, right? Or Misraim, right? So now we have a situation where now the situation is, look, we gotta body this dude, like we gotta kill him, but we can't do it during the feast, because if we during the feast, the people are going to bug out. It's like, yo, you killing somebody on a feast day. And that was a no-no. That was sacrilegious. They didn't want to do that, right? So now this is 2 days before that time period, and they're trying to gather how they're going to do this. So now this is going to help us to determine what time period is going on, right? So now if it's 2 days before the feast, that means during this time period of those 2 days, you still have to get the lamb, examine the lamb, etc. So in regards to Yeshua, the reason why his disciples alluded to him being like a Passover lamb, because they use a literary device within the narrative, is because he was inspected by the Pharisees for imperfections, and they could not find any guile in him, right? So in their mind, it's like, man, this guy kept Torah perfectly, like, you know, more than anybody else we know. And when the Pharisees came to him and tried to confound him, they couldn't do it. The same way when you go and you seek out the lamb, and you have to inspect the lamb and make sure there's no blemish on it, there's no damages on it, the bones are not broken, etc. And then this also transitions into when he was being crucified, that he died before the Roman soldiers got a chance to break his legs, to make sure that he was not faking and that he was actually dead, so they can get the body down. So because his bones were not broken, and because when they inspected him, they couldn't find no guile or any faults in him, this is why the disciples decided to say, wow, this guy is like the Passover lamb for Israel, figuratively speaking, because if we look to see what is physically done, we could say, man, they did it figuratively with him, or symbolically they did it with him. So now 2 days before that feast period, we know that, okay, they're getting the lamb, these things are happening. So when you read Mark chapter 14, I'm gonna get into Matthew as well, because I just want to give context, right? And sometimes looking at the Synoptic Gospels, you'll have one part that'll have a little bit more information than the other. We know Mark is like really short, and Mark is written like rough kind of Greek, because Mark, you know, that may not have been his chief language. And then we go to Matthew, it's a little bit better, because Matthew was believed traditionally to be a publican or a tax collector, so he was a little bit more literate than Mark would have been. And then you have Luke, and Luke was considered to be a Gentile doctor or physician. So when you read the book of Luke, it's going to be much longer, similar to like if a high schooler, if a college student, and a professor all wrote a paper about the same subject, you're going to have varying degrees of styles, right, and length. So the professor is going to have a much longer dissertation than the other two, right? And Matthew would be like the college student, and then the high school student would be Mark, and then the professor would be like Luke, right? So sometimes we have to go to certain places to get a little bit more data that's not in another synoptic gospel to kind of tell what's going on here. So the reason why I brought it here is because when you go to Matthew chapter 26, with the chapter before the one that you said, in verse 1 and verse 2, we see something interesting that lines up with Mark chapter 14. And if you need any kind of assistance with like cross references, you can get what's called the Treasury of Scriptural Knowledge, and TSK will help to link certain passages up with other related passages in the text. And it's a great go-to guide. And if you want that, you can definitely inbox me on Facebook, and I can send it to you. Because I want to make sure, like, if we have future discussions, that you have access to everything that I have access to, so we can have a really level discussion, right? But if you go to Matthew chapter 26, it says, when Jesus, or Yeshua, had finished saying all these things, he told his disciples, you know that the Passover begins in 2 days, and the Son of Man will be handed over to be crucified. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up, this 2 days is because, was this a Hebraic colloquialism, or was he speaking literally in regards to 2 days? Now, in academia, the way time is reckoned and how they assess the scriptures is based on sunrise to sunset. In the Orthodox Judaism, they reckon that time period, or a day, from the evening to the daylight portion, right? So if he's saying 2 days, the things that we have to take into account is he reckoning time relatively based on the Hebraic traditions, or is he speaking based on the Roman reckoning of time that they're under, which would be the Julian calendar at that time? So when he's saying 2 days here, my question for you is that also a Hebraic colloquialism, or is that something that is literal and concrete from your perspective? And I'll mute and let you rock.
Hold on, let me read these real quick.
Sure.
I didn't know what this was building up to.
Okay, no problem.
So I'm reading from the ESV, and this says, "You know that after 2 days, the Passover is coming, and the Son of Man will be delivered up to be crucified." And Mark 14 says, "It was now 2 days before." And so one says after 2 days, and the other says it was 2 days before. So I feel like it sort of proves what I'm trying to say, that after and on, like two days means the same thing.
All right, so we're going to look at the Greek for those two words there. So what was the scripture that you gave me?
It was, I just read the same two that you told me to read.
Okay, so you read Matthew chapter 26 verse 2.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Matthew 26 verse 2, and we're trying to see as far as like time period. So in the Greek, the word there is meta, which means after, right? After, dio, which is 2, and hemeris, which is days, right? Plural, right? So here it says, literally what we're looking at there, you know that after 2 days. So when you go into the lexicon for that word meta, and we know that word meta can mean like change as well, and in regards to time, like a metamorphosis, right? So when you go to the word meta, it's a preposition, and it means a change that happens afterwards. So in this case, what he's referring to is that the death, the fact that he's going to be crucified. And the root word for crucified there is the word staro, which we get like for a cross or something like that. People then link that to cross, but it really means to be crucified, right? So he's saying that that is the actual change that's going to happen, which I'm alive now, but I'm going to be dead then. But in regards to that event, 2 days is going to pass before that occurs. And when we go into the word there for days, the root word is hemera. And that word hemera there is regarding a sunrise to sunset. So this will almost go in alignment with what you're saying. And that means that when he's making this reference, being that this is written in Koine Greek, it's referring to how the Romans doctored time, right? So that means it will go in alignment with him saying 12 hours. You know how you mentioned 12 hours?
So what he's saying is he's measuring time the way Romans measure time.
Exactly. And he's saying,
okay, and so today, do we measure time the same way that Romans measure time?
Yes.
So his 2 days would be our 2 days, and his in 3 days would be our in 3 days.
Correct. Now here's the thing. But then if he also includes nights, he's making an allusion to a Hebraic way of reckoning time when we go to Jonah before we get to the Roman situation. So mind you, we also got to look at the audience and who he's expressing this to see what they would have understood during that period of time. So in this case, if he's saying 2 days, he's talking about 2 sunrise to sunset days, right? So sunrise, sunset, sunrise, sunset. So those 2 things have to occur before Passover and unleavened bread, before he is taken over to be crucified. So this is why I say that he's a martyr, because he anticipated and predicted that he would die and when he would die, right? Because he obviously had this insight to know this. So he's letting them know in regards to what's taking place. After 2 days, or meta, the change that's occurring after 2 literal sunrise to sunset periods, I'm going to be handed over to be crucified. And again, we reckon this to be during the period of Passover, because he had to be off the cross, right? We said cross, I say stauros, which is the tree upright stake. He had to be taken off of that execution device, and he had to be put in the grave before the evening, because otherwise the land will be defiled. And this goes back to Torah, where if you hang a prisoner or somebody, you got to take his body down before the evening, because otherwise the land will be defiled. And then when we start to see the watches, we see the periods of time in which this is occurring. So now this is 2 days before. So now at this time period in Jerusalem, you have people that's coming from all over into Jerusalem. And what they're doing is they have to get them a lamb. So during this period of time, you see that, hey, okay, we got to go and assess a lamb, etc. So people talk about like the Last Supper and try to figure out, well, when was the Last Supper in relation to what was going to happen with him? Because if he had to be taken and arrested and tried and executed before the evening that started the day of unleavened bread, then we know that when he was killed, it was not on that time period, because you see the narrative is telling you this has to happen before that time period. He's telling you I have to be crucified before this time period within 2 days. So when he is killed, we know it's during the daytime, and this is very evident because, you know, according to the narrative, there was a eclipse, right? Some kind of a supernatural event, or it could have been a natural event that occurred that blocked the sun so that nobody could see for a period of time, and then it passed on. So we know that when he was being crucified, it was during the daylight portion. So the reason why I was asking what was the preparation day, what did that mean? The preparation day would be like your Passover, because you're preparing, the time period before you kill and slay the lamb. And then that evening, when you roast the lamb and eat it with your unleavened bread and bitter herbs, right? So I was trying to say this just so we can kind of gauge time and try to understand, the overarching, the view of what's going on, to try and kind of assess what's going on. So now the key thing is here. If we're looking at the way that the week is arranged during that time period, and we know that it's extremely relative to what we have today, with some exceptions on how things were set up to account for Easter, right? And if we look in Pope Gregory and see what his reform was in regards to the calendar, we understand that. But there's still some cultures that still keep the Julian calendar, but that's another discussion. What you'll see is that you'll see a situation where if this happened on Friday.
Y'all need me to turn it off? Oh, it might be a minute. Okay. My bad, man.
No doubt. It's all good.
How do I this is my first time using this. How do I mute myself? I don't want to keep cutting you off.
Are you on a phone or a laptop?
Laptop.
Okay, so if you look at the top, you'll see that there's some icons there. There's a little man icon, a mic icon, and a camera. So if you hit the mic icon, it'll mute you. If you hit the camera icon, it'll turn your camera off. And you just hit it again and turn the mic back on, turn the camera back on. Do you see that? Okay, yeah, I see you muted. Okay, cool. All right. So I'm gonna continue on, and I'm gonna let you wrap a little bit after that. So I think the question that we have now is there any reference in the scriptures that talk about the middle of the week? So if we see anything that says the middle of the week, now we have to ask ourselves, okay, what is this in reference to? Because if we're saying in the scriptures that he was killed on Friday, and then we say that the preparation day, that was the preparation day, then that means that next day was unleavened bread. So then the question would be, was during that time period, how they reckon time, could unleavened bread fall on the same day as a Sabbath? And if so, what would account for the middle of the week, right? Like what really would represent the middle of the week? So I'm going to go into the scripture right now to see, because if we have a scripture that talks about the middle of the week, then we have to really address that to say, okay, if he was killed during the middle of the week, then and in that time period, then the Julian calendar was similar to how our week is today, then how could it be possible that the middle of the week be Friday, right? So the first thing we want to say, which will be interesting, is that if we looked at what we just read for the word 2 days, and we've seen that a day, if it's the Roman reckoning, is from sunrise to sunset, and let's say that he was killed on Friday, 2 days from Friday, you would have, according to what we just read, another day would be that Saturday, and another day would be that Sunday, because you can't count that Friday because he's going in the grave right before the sun is set. So that's not even a full day, because according to the definition, the day is from sunrise to sunset. So that already disqualifies Friday from even being a candidate for him to be crucified on, because simply you do not have the full reckoning of time to account for a day according to the Koine Greek language and the Roman understanding of the language. Now, the Romans, Greek was also still a lingua franca during that time, but Latin was also used as well, right? Amongst the Roman soldiers and the Roman hierarchy and administration, etc. So the way they reckon time would be similar to what we get from the Koine Greek rendering of time. And again, it would agree with it. And the Roman soldiers would know, if you were to ask them during that time period, hey, what's a day to you? They would say, oh, day starts at 6 a.m. in the morning and it ends at 6 p.m. at night, because they would be thinking, absolutely. If you went to a Jew or somebody that's a Yahudi and asked him, hey, what's a day to you? He said, oh, well, the day begins when the sun sets and it ends when the sun sets the next day. But the time in which we work during that period of time is when the sun rises and when the sun sets. So this is how you can look at two different individuals during the same time period, but having two different reckonings of time, and they would be able to share it with you depending upon the audience. Now, if I was a Yahudi and I had to report to a Roman official and he is talking about time to me, I'm going to have to switch gears into what I consider to be a day and then transition into what the Roman administration would have reckoned time. And I would have to agree to say, okay, if we're talking about periods of time and I'm talking about the Romans, it's going to be from the sunrise to sunset, because they don't care about my culture as opposed to, you know, the evening also being included, right? That's just a break between days. If you look at how they reckon time, the Roman administration, how they reckon time. So again, Friday would be very hard pressed because it does not fit the criteria for a full day, which is number one. And number two, the question would be, and this is something else. Now, what I want to share with you, I want to give you a great resource on this, right? Because again, anytime I have dialogues, if I have a tool that I can give to you to make you better in your studies, I will. And this tool that I'm giving you is indifferent from my particular perspective or worldview. It's just a great scholarly article that gives you a lot of information on the subject matter. And I've shared that with my audience recently. I think it was yesterday, right? Or maybe last week or something like that. Probably was yesterday. I'm not sure, but I want to give you a book. I'm going to gift you with this book, right? And what I'm going to do is I want to show you, because the reason why I'm bringing this up is because there's also trying to figure out, well, when did the Last Supper happen? Like in the realm of Christianity and looking at the scholarly realm and trying to determine when the Last Supper was is extremely important, because that will let us know exactly when things happen. Because if the Last Supper occurred, let's say the weekend before these things happened, then we got to reassess things. If the Last Supper occurred the day before Passover, then we got to look at certain things. If the Passover, the Last Supper happened on Passover day going into the evening, then that means he really wasn't killed, and killed the same way that the narrative is saying when it should occur. So this book actually goes into the various scholarly arguments. And not only that, what it does is that it gives you a great preface, which is reckoning time in ancient Israel. And then they transition from that and give you some information in regards to the Roman time. But let me pull out this reference real quick, because I want you to take a look at it so you can see it. And I want you to let me know what you think, right? Because again, I still want to get to the middle of the week period and that information. So let me bring out the book. I'm going to show it to you, and I'm going to send it to you. I'm going to gift it to you. So right now, if you can you go to Facebook and just inbox me your email address, and I'm going to get you over this book. And when you get a chance, you can check it out, and just let me know what you think. It's going to help you in regards to your studies, right? So I'm going to pull up on my screen in 1 second. Just give me 1 second. Let me bring it up here. Okay, here we go. All right. If you can see it, let me know if you can see my screen. Or maybe you're trying to go to Facebook, but let me know if you can see it whenever you get a chance.
Yeah, I mean, I can see what's on your screen.
All right. So you see what it says, right?
Yeah.
So calendrical variations in Second Temple Judaism, new perspectives on the date of the Last Supper debate, right? By Stéphane Saulnier, right? So when you go through this, I'm going to show you this real quick. Right. So what it does is that it introduces you to why this book is even being written. Discrepancies in the Gospel's passions narrative, classical attempts for reconciling the Gospel accounts. The chronology of the Synoptic Gospels is correct. The chronology of the fourth Gospel is correct. And both the Synoptic and Johannine, and when you see Johannine, that means John, right? Chronologies are correct, and inquiries undertaken in the present study. Now, this is as recent as, I think it's 2012. So this is about 7 years old. And since then, there's other works that has come out talking about this subject matter. But to me, from all the books that I read, this to me is like the zenith in regards to understanding the subject matter, right? And then once it introduces you to what seems to be some issues in regards to chronology with the Synoptic Gospels internally within themselves, then being reconciled with the Johannine or the Yachanan or the John Gospel, and if both of them are actually correct, but just giving you different vantage points, right? So what they do is that they give you the Jobertian theory. And Annie Joubert, she was one of the individuals that came out with a theory in regards to what it is that we're talking about, right? So what they do is that they first start you off with letting you know what the ancient Jewish calendar in the book of Jubilees is, sources of Christian liturgy, the Gospels, Joubert's conclusions, and then the critic's appraisal of her theory. And then the most important thing is when it goes into the patristic evidence, a 3-day chronology of Jesus' passion. And the Passion Week, I mean, if anybody's familiar with Catholicism, you know that has to do with all the different steps and the things that happened to Jesus as the situation was going on with that led up to his crucifixion, right? And that movie Passion of the Christ actually outlines what the Catholic Catechism speaks about when it refers to the Passion Week of Jesus, right? So the reason why I'm showing this is because it's going to give you festivals and the seasons in various sources and go into the pretext, right? So the pretext is going to be understanding the Tanakh. And a lot of Christians fall short when it comes to determining how do we reckon time in the New Testament, because they're not understanding the Hebraic perspective. And if I was a scholar and I was tackling what we're talking about right now, I would be obligated, and it would be a prerequisite before I can speak on the New Testament to understand the background information in regards to the ancient Israelite reckoning of time and the Romans and how the Romans reckon time. This is extremely important, because if you don't have this, then going into the New Testament, you're going to be a little bit confused, right? And here they do a great job of laying out for you all of the Tanakh, what they call the Jewish. They go into the Elephantine Papyrus. They go into the Gezer calendar. They go into the Book of Jubilees. They go into the Book of Enoch. They go into Philo's commentary. They go to Josephus. They go everywhere for you to lay out a premise before they get to a conclusion. And once they hit that conclusion, then the author then gives you their dissertation or their thesis towards the end on how they was able to understand the best way to ascertain when the Last Supper occurred, because once you nail that down, then you understand what happened the next day, the following day, etc. So what I want to get for you, I want to fast forward all of that, because when you get this book, you read it. It's about 278 pages or something like that. But it's a great read. I promise you will learn a lot.
You might have to send me the important pages on that one.
But what I do want to hone in on is on the conclusion element, okay? And in the conclusion element, I want to go to page 240 where it says back to the date of the Last Supper, right? So let me go to page 240 for you real quick, all right? So we dealt a little bit in the scriptures, and we're going to go back. We're going to close out in the scriptures, right? But first, I wanted to also give you a scholarly reference as well, because the way I work or the way I operate, I deal with what's called interdisciplinary sources. So I use the scriptures as a base, but at the same time, there's certain things in the scriptures that may not be clear, and it may require us to go extra biblically to verify internally what the scriptures are saying, and then to validate whatever exegesis we're trying to put forth, right? And I want to make sure that we're doing proper exegesis when we're talking about this subject matter, and we're not eisegeting our own presupposition. So our presupposition will be what we previously believed to be true because it's how we've been brought up, how we've been raised, or whatever. But when we challenge it and we critique it to ensure, like, hey, was what I was told traditionally, is that really true? We go back into it. Now, I'm not going to have time to go into the church fathers, because the church fathers also speak on this subject matter. And what I can do is give you also a PDF that goes into the church fathers' works as it pertains to this subject matter as well. And you can see how they are trying to reconcile this situation in regards to this too. But let me just get here real quick for you. Let me just go into this, right? So here on page 240, where it says 3, back to the date of the Last Supper, it says, having started this investigation from Joubert's premise that the difficulties surrounding the discrepancies contained in the passion narratives of the 4 Gospels could be positively explained by the consideration that there were different competing year reckonings in use in the 1st century Judea, and Judea was a province of the Roman Empire in Palestine during that time period, or Canaan, however you want to label it. It is now fitting to consider the ways in which which parts 2 and 3 of the present thesis contribute to the question. In other words, how do the investigation of the relation between the cultic cycles and the agricultural cycles and the sources on the one hand, and the specific Second Temple calendrical issues identified and interpreted on the other hand, and contribute to the thesis defended here. In relation to the issues surrounding the question of the date of the Last Supper, the present inquiry seems to demonstrate that, pay attention to this part, 1, a consideration of the Second Temple cultic cycles as expounded in the extant textual sources shows that all sources indicate inter alia within them that they considered their cultic cycles to be synchronized with the seasons. And if I had a dialogue with you even further, I can break that down. But if you're interested in this dialogue, if you go back to my channel, I have a playlist where I actually talk about in depth the Judaic understanding, what people say Judaic understanding, but I say the ancient Israelite understanding of how time is reckoned in regards to the seasons, right? Going back to this, part 2 says a consideration of specific Second Temple Judaism calendrical issues reinforces, by way of additional evidence, the hypothesis that there were indeed competing calendars followed by different strands of Judaism in Palestine in the centuries leading up to the 1st century. Both lines of inquiry, from the perspectives considered therein and within the limits of the textual evidence available, contribute to develop further our knowledge of the calendrical issues that are likely to have formed the backdrop to the 1st century Palestine and to the events centering on the last few days of Jesus' earthly life. At the outset, the above findings clear the path for a thorough reappraisal of the questions surrounding the discrepancies recorded in the Gospels concerning the date and nature of Jesus' Last Supper with his disciples. Now, if you continue to read, it says, the present work does assert, however, that textual evidence from the last centuries of the Second Temple period supports further the conclusion reached by others before. Calendrical issues were at the epicenter of Judaism for very obvious reasons, right? And it goes the author goes into further detail in regards to that. But let me fast forward, because I want to actually show you what was causing the debate, which is those 2 major points there in regards to reckoning time per cultic or agricultural cycles based on that land mass or the geography in which that was occurring. But now what they're doing is proposing for you additional areas of increase. And this is I think where I want to end that right here, because the rest of it is an appendix, etc. But let's go and let's finish up here so that way we can kind of understand a little bit about the backdrop that sets the stage before we can even get into the scriptures and understand time reckoning, right? It says here, 3rd, the thesis proposes fresh interpretation of difficult reading of the Book of Luminaries. Now, if you don't know what the Book of Luminaries is, the Book of Luminaries references the Book of Enoch and the section of the Book of Enoch that deals specifically with time reckoning, because the Book of Enoch speaks on a host of different things, but there's about 10 chapters that deal specifically with the reckoning of time. It says, if accepted, these will generate a renewed interest in the field by opening possibilities. In particular, the interconnection between Jewish astronomy and astronomical works from neighboring civilizations may generate more fertile grounds. 4th, this thesis provides new arguments in favor of the identification of the DWQ dates recorded in 3 Qumran cave writings, thus also partly confirming a recent scholarly hypothesis linking the dates with lunar observations in Babylonia. From this perspective, a fresh investigation of the proposal of Jerome Murphy O'Connor that influential for the rise of the Essene movement was a Persian-influenced sect of Judaism based on the late returning groups from the exile in Babylon would likely be beneficial. So now what they're saying is, in order for you to even be able to tackle the Last Supper and to determine what day of the week that Jesus was killed on and the Passion situation, you have to first have a background knowledge on the Babylonian time of reckoning, because again, the Babylonian time of reckoning from the Chaldean priests influenced the Macedonians, which Alexander the Great was when he went into Babylon to conquer it, and took that reckoning of time that he learned from the Chaldeans and then infused that into his reckoning of time in regards to his empire that he had started, which split into the Seleucids and oh man. Wow, how did I forget this? It's crazy. Sometimes this happens when I'm putting out a lot of information. But anyway, it'll come to me. Seleucus having to do with the region of Palestine or the Levant region. And once you have that backdrop of Babylon, now we get the Qumran cave. Now, why is the Qumran cave important to this period of time? Well, these individuals live on the outskirts of society, and they lived in the Qumran caves, and they had their own way of reckoning certain things. And there are found within them a lot of the fragments of the book of Enoch, but also the book of Jubilees, and their extra textual writings that they have put forth that kind of reckon the day-to-day operation of how they operated. And they're saying that if you get these pieces of data, it will best help you to center what exactly was going on here in the text from that cultic perspective, right, of the so-called Jews or Yahudim. So taking this information, I'm going to show you why this is relevant when we go back into the text. Because remember what I said to you when you had made a reference to Genesis, and I had to tell you what relative dating is and absolute dating is, and then give you some information in regards to how the reckoning of time is understood by these Jews before we get to this situation. And also, when you're doing proper exegesis, you got to know who is the speaker and who's the immediate audience, and then who is the perceived audience later on down the line. And in certain dialogues, like if he's talking to a Roman soldier, they're going to be speaking on terms that is mutually understood or mutually agreed, right? Or what's mutually intelligible between the two. That may not be equally as mutually intelligible if you have that discussion with somebody else that's kin to you or that's ethnically the same as you. And it's the same way today. Like if I have a conversation with somebody I grew up with, that's my boy, I'm like, yo, that's my dude right there. The conversation I have with him is going to be different the way than I talk to a police officer who may be of another ethnic background than me and my friend. I have to switch gears into how I address him and how we talk in our colloquialisms to kind of make it more formal in the event of going to court or talking to a police officer or a lawyer or something along those terms, right? So in this case period of time, he's talking to his disciples. He's saying, listen, in 2 days, I'm going to be crucified. Now, what is believed by, at that time, the speech in which Jesus or Yeshua Bar Yosef was speaking at that time, it is universally accepted, or general consensus is that he was speaking Aramaic. So he would have been speaking Aramaic to his disciples, but then when he's talking to Roman soldiers, it's not going to be Aramaic. So a lot of people back then were bilingual to a certain degree. And we see this evidence in the book of Yachanan, the book of John, where John gives you one word, and it says this is also called this, because what he's giving you the Aramaic transliteration, and then he's giving you how it's said in the Greek, right? So you have a situation where he's telling them 2 days. He's talking to the disciples. That's the audience. He's the speaker. At that time, there's no Romans that are there. There's no Goyim or Gentiles. He's talking directly to them. And the reason why he's saying this to them is because he's using this in accordance with Roman administration, because it would be the Romans that he would be handed over to. And according to how they do their trial, it would be according to how their days are reckoned. So I know this may be inundation of a lot of information, but I think that all of this has to be thoroughly examined and put within its proper context before we even read the scripture. So that way we have an understanding of what's going on. So now during this time period, the middle of the week, which some people would say is Wednesday, if we're looking at it from the Roman reckoning of time, the middle of the week is typically when the lamb is prepared. So people would say, well, that would be your Pesach, right? Your middle of the week situation. And then that evening going into the next day, which would be your Thursday on that Roman calendar, would be your Feast of Unleavened Bread during the day period where people cannot work. There can be no work being done on that day, which will be the next day. So that means you can work on Pesach. That means you can kill somebody on Passover, but make sure you get that body down before the evening, because to the Jews, we cease from working. We're not going to work because we're told this is a high Sabbath, right? So the preparation day, which would be your Pesach, and then your evening after the preparation day period, which would be Passover, will be your unleavened bread. You got to get that body down, because otherwise you're going to defile the land. And we can't have that body up there rotting and looking crazy, because now there will be a curse that will be brought upon us. This is why we see when Joshua, if I'm not mistaken, went to Ai and he conquered the kings of Ai, they hung them on a stake. And then they had to get the body down before evening, because you cannot keep the body there but a certain period of time, because then you will defile the land. If you defile the land, then a curse will be upon you. And then now something has to be, some kind of intervention must be done for atonement, right? So the Friday argument, again, there's scholars now, and I can also, give me your email address. I'll send you the scholars that defend Friday to Sunday, right? And their lines of justifying it is along the lines of what you just said. And when I read the work of a lot of these scholars, it doesn't measure up to what I'm reading here, which gives you a huge amount of pretext before you even can make this argument about how time is reckoned during that period of time. Because there's a lot of different things that are going on and a lot of understandings. And to properly exegete something, you have to be able to identify the environmental, the political, the social construct, the dietary, because mind you, they're about to eat lamb, right? And they're about to eat unleavened bread, which means they had to take all the leaven out of their homes. So then Yeshua used this as a means of teaching. They say, hey, look, you guys can't just remove the leaven from your home physically, but there's also other types of leaven that you have to remove from your lives. And he was even saying that the Pharisees have become leaven because they are puffed up. And if you understand how leaven works, you have some types of yeast. And what the yeast does is that the yeast, as a byproduct, produces carbon dioxide, and those carbon dioxide bubbles get trapped in the bread, which causes the bread to rise, right? So they understood that when you remove the yeast, right, and you just make it out of straight flour, then it will only rise but so much because you don't have the carbon dioxide bubbles to puff up the bread. So this is why when you talk about leaven, leaven is designed to puff something up. And what he was saying was that the Pharisees at that time were puffed up because, as we read from the narrative, they were trying to kill him because they felt that he was undermining their authority. So now, dietary wise, they have to get rid of yeast. You have to start to prepare to start getting rid of yeast, and you have to have all the yeast out before the evening after the culmination of the Passover daylight period. So now diet comes into effect because now you got to think about what they had to do to prepare. When you see preparation day, it required a lot of work to get all the yeast out your home, right? So this preparation day and this high Sabbath, if that's mentioned in the scriptures, that means we're not talking about the weekly Sabbath, which means that now we have to go back and reassess if Friday is really the day in which he was crucified, according to what we see there. So let's get back into the scriptures. I'm going to say a few things, and then I'm going to shut up. You can speak as long as you want to either peer review what I said, or you can interject something new or give your perspective on something, because I want this to be a fair dialogue. And if you want to use scriptures or another source, you can. But if not, we can also always have a follow-up dialogue on this. And I would definitely like to hear whatever else you had to say, because you represent the other two people that should have been here on this call who decided that we're just not going to join in. But I definitely want to get you your intake as well after I just lay this out. So if we go back to scripture, let me pull up scripture real quick. Give me 1 second. So we're going to see the events in regards to things that are happening, right? Hold on 1 second. Okay, I'm sorry. I just had to quiet things down in my home real quick. All right, so I'm going to Matthew chapter 26. Okay, and when we go to Matthew chapter 26, let's go to verse 20. Right. So matter of fact, I'm sorry. Let's go to verse 17. Right. So mind you, what I'm saying to you is, you see within the Synoptic Gospels and John, there are some things that seem as discrepancies or conflicts. And what you're going to read in the book of Matthew is going to be really interesting, because it's going to help to give us some information in regards to his crucifixion. So let's read this, right? So in verse 17, it says, now on the first day of unleavened bread, the disciples came. Now look, the text is saying this is the first of unleavened bread. So now this is going to transition to the second argument. So what I provided was the first argument that, hey, he had to be killed and brought down before the day of unleavened bread, before the feast, what we see in the book of Mark. But Matthew was saying something additional. It says, now on the first day of unleavened bread, the disciples came to him and asked, where do you want us to prepare for you to eat the Passover? Now this is interesting, because if Passover hasn't been eaten yet, then that means if we're talking about the Feast of Unleavened Bread, what time period is this? Is this the day before, or is this the evening before? Because if they're saying we're going to prepare for you to do Passover, we know when they ate Passover, it had to happen on that day in which Passover was transitioning into the evening for unleavened bread. This is why I said when you read Philo's work and you read Josephus' work, you see where they pretty much intertwine Passover, the day portion, with the first day of unleavened bread and consider that one full day. So now it says, and he said, go into the city to a certain man and say to him, the teacher says, my time is near. I am to keep the Passover at your house and with my disciples. The disciples did as Yeshua had directed them, and they prepared the Passover. Verse 20 says, now when the evening came, Yeshua was reclining at the table with the 12 disciples. So now watch this. If this is the evening period and they're about to eat Passover, now we have a totally different argument that's on the table. So let's continue to read. As they were eating, he said, truly one of you will betray me, being deeply grieved. They each began to say to him, surely who's going to do this, etc., etc. When we go further down, we're going to go into where it says the Garden of Gethsemane, right? Then Yeshua came with them to a place called Gethsemane and said to his disciples, sit here while I go over there and pray. So now he's going there to the Garden of Gethsemane. Jump down to verse 47. While he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, came up, accompanied with a large crowd with swords and clubs, who came with the chief priests and elders of the people. Now he who was betraying him gave them a sign saying, whoever I kiss, he is the one that you see. So now we're seeing the arrest occurring, and this arrest is happening during that Passover feast period, which would be the first day of unleavened bread. So now it's like, okay, so this is happening during the evening time. When is he going to be tried? When is he going to be crucified? And if so, is this the next day or the second day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, according to the book of Matthew? Because I'm going to jump back to Mark and see what Mark says real quick. And then I want to go to John, but I'll probably not, because I want to give you some time. I don't want to just keep going on and on. But let's keep reading. As far as Matthew, I'm going to jump to Mark, right? So it says here, it says, after he was seized, in verse 57, those who had seized him led him to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the scribes and elders had gathered. It says, but Peter was following him at a distance as far as the courtyard on the high priest, and entered in and sat down with the officers to see the outcome. Now remember, Cephas, which is Peter, Yeshua said to him that you are going to deny me 3 times before the rooster crows. Now, when we look at the reckoning of time to see when the rooster crows, it is believed by biblical scholars that the watch in which the rooster crows is going to be from 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. Then from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m., you have your last or your fourth watch, because then the evening or the nighttime period has ceased, and now we're transitioning into your 12 hours of day, right? So it says here, but Peter was following at a distance as far as the courtyard of the high priest, and entered in and sat down with the officers to see the outcome. So now we have a situation where they're talking to him. Now watch this. Remember, I told you this is the evening time. All of this is taking place, the evening time. And then now when we go to verse 69, it says, now when Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard, and a servant girl came to him and said, you too were with Yeshua, the Galilean. But he denied it before them, saying, I don't know what you're talking about, etc., etc. And then when we go to verse 75, and Peter remembered the word which Yeshua had said, before a rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. And he went out and wept bitterly. And remember, the third watch, which is from 12 to 3, is what's believed to when the rooster starts to crow. And the rooster crows all the way until we get daylight, right? So now we have a period of time that this is happening in the evening of what's called the Passover evening. Now, mind you, when they say first day of unleavened bread, one of the other things that scholars are deciding is, when he's saying Passover, did he eat this the evening that began the day of Passover? And everything I said before this explains why my position is that when this occurred, it was that evening of Passover, when Passover began, and it was not the Feast of Unleavened Bread. But because they're reckoned to be one and the same and they're intertwined, by the time first century CE comes, this is why when we see things that are mentioned as this is the first day of unleavened bread, but they're talking about Passover, it's like, okay, which one is it? And if you don't understand what Philo and Josephus says on the matter, then you're not going to understand that it's been intertwined by the time that time period came up. But now we see a situation where this happens now during 12 a.m. to 3 a.m., which would be the third watch in the evening or at night. Verse 27, we go to verse 11, where it says, now he stood before the governor, and the governor questioned him, saying, are you the king of the Jews? And Yeshua said to him, if you say so, etc., etc. So now Pilate is examining him, right? So now the Romans got him. Then we go to verse 27. It says, then the soldiers of the governor took Yeshua into the praetorium and gathered the whole Roman cohort around him. They stripped him, put a scarlet robe on him, and after twisting together a crown of thorns, they put on his head a reed in his right hand and knelt down, mocked him, hailed the king, right? Then we go to verse 33, which says, and when they came to a place called Golgotha, which means place of the skull, they gave him wine to drink, gall. After it was tasted, he was unwilling to drink. We jump down, we go to verse 45. Now watch this. Now from the 6th hour, darkness fell upon the land until the 9th hour. Now the reason why I'm going here is because now we know that this is daylight. And the only way you can have darkness being anything substantial is if there's light outside, right? So now this period of the crucifixion is happening during the day in the 6th hour until the 9th hour. And this is the ways that you reckon time from 6 a.m. all the way until 6 p.m., which would be a 12-hour period. So now we're saying the 9th hour is going to be the 9th hour before you get to your 12th hour, which will be your 6 p.m. period of time. You'll see what time of the day this was. So this is approximately, if I'm not mistaken, 3 p.m., right? So your 9th hour is going to be 3 p.m., but 12 p.m. is going to be your 6th hour. So from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. is when this is taking place, when darkness is covering. And the reason why it had to take place during that time, because at 12 a.m. is when the sun is in its zenith, at its highest point. So for darkness to happen unexpectedly during that time, because mind you, they were able to chart when eclipses happen during that time period. So sometimes eclipses will occur that would be like unusual, and it would be considered an omen. So now we have a situation where from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m., darkness is there. And it's like, oh, what's happening? Like, that's crazy. And in the 9th hour after the darkness, Yeshua says, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, which is, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? And Eli, Eli, they believe that he was saying Eli, but Eli is my God, right? So you have the word El there, which means power of God. And when you see the I or the yod suffix, it's the possessive construct that means my. So he's saying, my power, why have you forsaken? Why have you left or separated from me? Now, this is what is being said right here. Now, watch this. Now, when we jump down to the point where he actually dies, in verse 50, and Yeshua cried out again with a loud voice and yielded up his spirit. And behold, the veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom, and the earth shook and the rocks were split. Verse 52, the tombs were opened. Many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised, it says. And coming out of the tombs after his resurrection, they entered the holy city and appeared to many. Now the centurion and those who were with him keeping guard over Yeshua, when they saw the earthquake and the things that were happening, became frightened and said, truly, he was the Son of God. Now look at this. Many women were there looking on from a distance who had followed Jesus or Yeshua from Galilee while ministering to him. And among them, it told you who they were. Verse 57, when it was evening, watch this. Evening is talking about the twilight period. Remember I told you the 3 twilight periods. Civil twilight, which is where this will be occurring, nautical twilight, and astronomical twilight. Why would this be occurring during the civil twilight? Because you have daylight hours there to still take a body down, bring a body to a grave, and prepare things. So you need light in order to do this. So this is not nautical or astronomical twilight. So it says, when evening came, a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who himself had been a disciple of Yeshua. He went to Pilate, asked for the body. Pilate ordered to be given to him. He took the body, wrapped it, laid it in his own new tomb, which he had hewn out in the rock, and he rolled a large stone over the entrance of the tomb and went away. And when Magdalene was there, and the other Mary sitting opposite the grave. So now they're there opposite the grave. Now watch this. Let's pay attention to this. Now on the next day, the day after the preparation, watch this. Preparation day would be your Passover. When they say, hey, we got to go get a lamb and we got to have Passover at this guy's house. So the day after preparation, which would be what? Your first day of unleavened bread during the daylight portion, right? It says the chief priests and Pharisees gathered together with Pilate and said, sir, we remember when he was still alive, that deceiver said, after 3 days, I am to rise again. Now, mind you, they're talking about 3 days now. 3 days. Now, this is what you had pointed to. Let's watch this. Remember, 3 days is sunrise, sunset, sunrise, sunset, sunrise, sunset. 3 days. I am to rise again. Therefore, give orders for the grave to be made secure until the third day. Why do you want to secure the grave until the third day? Read the next part. Otherwise, his disciples may come and steal him away and say to the people, he has risen from the dead, and the last deception will be worse than the first. So the reason why they wanted to secure the grave up until the third day is not because the person that's writing this wants to kind of make mention to some kind of colloquialism in regards to charting time. No, they want to guard it up until the third day because they're saying, because if you don't protect it, you don't seal it, his disciples are going to steal that body and make it seem as if he resurrected when he really didn't. So you have to be able to guard it for sunrise, sunset. And remind you, again, the speaker and the receiver. So the person that's transmitting the message is the Pharisees. The person that's receiving it is a Roman governor. So Roman governor, his understanding of time, remember, a day is from sunrise to sunset. If the Pharisees were speaking to another Yahudi, their understanding of a day would be evening to evening. But he's not talking here to that. So again, proper exegesis, you identify who the speaker is, who the audience is, or who's the transmitter, who's the receiver, and understand the dialogue between them. And culturally, do they have the same background? Do they have different backgrounds? If so, how could this conversation have been communicated so that way it's mutually intelligible between both parties, etc.? So therefore, give orders to make sure that the grave is secure. Verse 65, Pilate said to them, you have a guard, go, make it as secure as you know. And they went and made the grave secure, and along the guard, they set a seal on the stone. I'm almost done. I'm going to let you rock. All right, verse 28. Now, after the Sabbath, as it began to dawn toward the first day of the week. Now, this right here is extremely important, and I'm going to read to you why. Matthew 28, verse 1. This after, after day, Sabbaton, after the Sabbath, it's saying, it began to dawn, Mayan, towards the first day of the week. Now, watch this. In the Greek, you have the word Sabbaton there twice. Hear me when I say this. After the Sabbath, it began to dawn towards the first day of the Sabbath. But here they render it as week. But the same word you see there, Sabbath, is the same word that they use for week. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that for you to study. Go back into the original language and see why the Greek is rendering it that way. Why is the Greek saying after the Sabbath, it began to dawn towards the first of the Sabbath? What's going on there? Whose Sabbaths are we talking about? Once you understand that, you'll be able to get that piece, put it right into the puzzle, and be like, oh, wow, I see what this is. So my last scripture I'm gonna go to, and I'm gonna let you rock as long as you want to rock. My last scripture I'm gonna go to is Mark, is the book of Mark, right? And let me get it. It's Mark chapter 16. I'll do 16. I'm not going to get into 14 and 15, which I really wanted to go into, but it's kind of like agreeing with Matthew. And if you understand textual criticism as it pertains to what's believed to have been what's called the Markian priority, which is what the consensus is today, is that the book of Mark was written first, and then Matthew borrowed from Mark and added his elements. Luke borrowed from Mark, added his elements. And then you have what's called, manuscript Q, which they believe to be another hypothetical source in which information was borrowed from for both Luke and Matthew, but in different frequencies. And then they had what was unique to their own. And what you'll see is that the places where they agree, where Matthew agrees with Mark and Luke agrees with Mark, the other places you'll see is where Matthew may disagree with Luke, but then there are places where Matthew and Luke agrees, but it doesn't agree with Mark. So therefore they attribute that to Q, hypothetical Q. This is all very important to understand. And I have a lecture in which I break this down if you're so interested. But when we go to Mark chapter 16, it opens up in verse 1. And this is extremely important. Let's see what it says here. Here it says, and having passed the Sabbath. So the word there is sabbatao in the Greek, having passed the Sabbath. So now this is a situation that happened after the Sabbath. When it's translated there, we see in verse 2, it says, very early on the first day of the week. Now, why are they coming there on the first day of the week and not on that Sabbath? The reason why is because on that set apart day, you cannot go to no grave and be defiled. And when you read the Talmud, which you have brought out, and a lot of the commentary from the Jewish sages, they speak on this, on certain things you can and can't do on the Sabbath. You know, when Jesus is speaking to the Pharisees and he's telling them, well, you guys are saying this, but you know, this is what it's really supposed to be. A lot of that is the oral traditions that was codified by 200 CE as far as the Mishnah and the court rulings, and then the Gemara was sealed the case in 500 CE, which gives you your compilation of the Talmud. But then you have sages that speak after that in different time periods, and they add on commentary to the Talmud. I have a lecture called How Do We Walk It Out, and I go into detail in regards to that. But here we see that it's bringing up the first day, or very early on the first day of the week, just after sunrise. So sunrise, just after sunrise, we have a situation where now they're arriving at the tomb. So the period of time that occurred from the time that the Pharisees are saying to Pilate, please seal the tomb, from that period of time all the way to the first day of the week. Now, when we get to verse 2, we see something interesting in the interlinear. Verse 2, it uses the word mia for the first and sabbaton for week. It's also using that word sabbaton for week again. Very interesting. Again, go back and research as to why that word sabbaton is there and why it's translated into week. There's a lot of commentaries, biblical scholarly commentaries on this. But now it says they come to the tomb having arisen the sun, or after the sun had rose. So after sunrise, they came to the tomb on the first day of the sabbaton, or the week. Now what happened? They went to the tomb. And when they went there, they say, oh, what's going on? And this is where they commence to not perceive, but commence to empirically ascertain that he is no longer there. But then they begin to see two angels, and you know, and they see that's two men and say, well, what's going on? And he said, why are you looking for the living amongst the dead, etc. So I'm going to cease there, and I'm going to say these final words. The best way to study this subject matter, to be able to figure out what's going on, is the number one, you have to be able to see what relative dating is. You have to be able to see what the reckoning of time is as it pertains to the ancient Israelites within the Iron Age context. When you go back and look at that book that I showed you, that book makes reference to the Gezer calendar. The Gezer calendar was in 925 BCE. And that is an agricultural calendar that's really believed to be a farmer's almanac. And some call it a schoolboy's exercise to agriculture. And what it does is that it breaks down the periods of time, which they call Yerek, either Yerek or Yerek U. U at that time is a more antiquated plural, or what we call dual plural in Hebrew. Hebrew has dual plural, has a singular, dual plural, and plural. Misra'im, A'im is symbolic of what's called a dual plural in Hebrew, right? So the Gezer calendar has a month you do this, 2 months you do this, 2 months you do this, a month you do this, which means that you have to be able to see within the archaeological context what's going on. You have to be able to go to the scriptural context. That means you got to be familiar, like you had mentioned, Bereshit or the Chumash, the first 5 books, to kind of get an understanding of how they're reckoning time. You have to be able to also look at other sources, people like Josephus and Philo. You have to also go to the book of Jubilees and the book of Enoch. You have to also go to extra biblical writings from the Qumran caves. You have to also go and look at the Talmud and how the Talmud depicts things, because the Mishnaic writings or Mishnaic Hebrew, right, is also very important, because a lot of things were capsulated there based on the Pharisees coming into effect and galvanizing all of the traditions of the people and placing it into one stream to make their sect distinct from the other sects that was around during that time period. So once you have all of that background information, Hebraically speaking, or from an Israelite cultural vantage point, then you got to go and examine the Greco-Roman calendar, right? You got to see how Alexander the Great modified his reckoning of time by interface with a Chaldean priest. And then from there, how the handover occurred, because the Israelites, or the Yahudim who had returned during the Greco-Roman time from the Maccabean revolt, they established a Hasmonean dynasty until that dynasty, through internal conflicts and subterfuge, was broken down. When the Romans came on the scene, you have the Julian calendar that has now taken effect. They are assimilating into the Julian calendar, but still kept their cultural elements. And now you have these authors, or who it's being ascribed, the text is being ascribed to, right? Because these could be pseudonyms, right? But the text is being ascribed to these authors who are believed to have been Mark, have believed to have been Matthew, and have believed to have been Luke and John. So Matthew, from when we read, Matthew would have been one of the disciples. John would have also been another disciple, but it's believed that the book of John was also infused with information, especially the prologue that we get in John chapter 1 to verse 14 to 16 to 18, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the lecture on it, where the Johannine community had included a prologue before the narrative begins. You have their vantage point and how they view the entire Passion Week, right? And the various things that occur. Our objective is to say, okay, if Luke is writing this, and I didn't even get into Luke. Luke is believed to be a Gentile, and he's writing this from his vantage point as a physician. John is writing this from his vantage point, writing it much later than Mark, Matthew, and Luke. So what was he trying to showcase in his gospel that we may not have the same angles in the synoptic gospels? If Matthew is believed to have been written first traditionally by the church fathers, but now the consensus of academics that Mark is written first, then what implications does that have in regards to reckoning time? And then if Matthew is a publican, then he would be a great source, because he has to meet certain deadlines for the Romans to collect taxes. Matthew, on the other hand, he's not a tax collector. He's not a physician. And John, on the other hand, being a disciple, he didn't have none of those traits. He had a different trade. So the way he would reckon time would be a little different. Now you got to look at their proximity to the Sea of Galilee, to the Jordan River, and say, okay, how does these elements in our geographical landscape, and when dealing with geology, or a geological hallmark, how is this influencing also how we reckon time? Because there's certain tides that bring in fish, right? If you're fishing in the Jordan River. The sea, on the other hand, you have certain periods of time in which the fish also reproduce. All of this has a bearing in determining when certain things occurred. And if we do not do this thorough understanding of how time is reckoned based on proper exegetical methods, we are automatically going to presume, through prepositional, dispositional imprints that has been placed upon us, that Friday is actually a Good Friday, when Jesus was crucified and he rose from the grave on Sunday. So with that, I concede my time. I'm going to hand it over to you. I'm going to let you give your piece. You can go as long as you want. And then I'm going to see if anybody else has any additional questions, because unfortunately, we didn't get the other two individuals to jump in and actually talk. But I'm going to allow you to have as much time as you want to give your build. So with that, I'm going to mute my mic.
I don't think you necessarily need to. Can you hear me? Am I heard?
Yes, I can hear you. I just muted my mic, but I can hear you.
Okay, well, I wanted to interact with you a little bit. You don't necessarily have to mute your mic. So, I mean, a large, like 90% of the things that you said require so much study, and the things that I don't have under my belt right now, because I haven't looked at this in a long time. I didn't even know I was going to be, quote unquote, representing another view. I planned on just seeing what you were going to say. But I wanted to ask / address your comments about how Sabbaton can be rendered Sabbath and week at the same time. I don't think it's about the word Sabbaton by itself, because Sabbaton by itself, I don't know in which versions that I saw it, but Sabbath can be rendered sevenths, as in like the number. And when in certain contexts, it can be rendered a week. And by context, I mean the words that precede Sabbaton.
Correct.
And I don't know Greek like that, but like usually when at least from what I've just seen, because I just looked it up, when Sabbaton is preceded by Maya, Mia, however you say it, or something like that, it means day of, like the first day of the Sabbath, which means it's the first day of the week, or like the first of a seventh, which means the same thing. Does that make sense?
No, correct. You're on point.
So,
That's why I left it open-ended for you to come in. And that's why when I was going into the Greek, I would say, why does it say Sabbaton here and Sabbaton here? And I said, I'm going to leave that for you to either do further research or elaborate on. And you definitely are pointing it out. So that's excellent. That's excellent. Go ahead.
oh, okay, yeah. I mean, I just looked that up. So I wanted to to gain clarification, because you had the floor for quite a while, and not only was I sort of distracted by things that were going on inside the house, but you were just spitting out so much at the same time. With regard to Matthew 26, the exchange between the Pharisees and against the Romans, with the Romans, what is the, hold on, golly, I cannot find my place. Maybe it's because I'm on the wrong page. Okay, so when the Pharisees go to Pilate and they say, "Sir, we remember how that impostor said while he was still alive, after 3 days I will rise. Therefore, order the tomb to be made secure until the third day, lest his disciples go and steal him away and tell the people." And if you can give me a succinct, short, to the point statement about translation of times, can you just like give me a statement as to what that means?
All right. So what verse was that?
It is Matthew 27, and I read verse 63, 64. You said things like you have to understand the context, the speaker, the audience, and
Correct.
all that to understand how it translates.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give me your take using those things? And yeah.
Sure. And in relation to Matthew 27 and 63, or just general?
63 and 64. Like, if you could tell me, like the Pharisees are saying this, which means this to the Romans, which means this to us, like that sort of deal.
Yeah. So now the Pharisees are talking to the Romans. So their reckoning of time for a day would be evening to evening. The time period for a day, where we get the Hemeras for days there, would be from sunrise to sunset according to the lexicons, right? That's how they reference it. So they would have been talking to the Romans in a speech in which they would have understood the reckoning of time to be sunrise to sunset.
So you're saying that the Jewish 24-hour evening to evening is the Romans sunrise to sunset.
Correct.
So within this quotation, within this verse, it seems that the Pharisees are explaining to the Romans within their own understanding of time.
Correct.
So it seems like the Pharisees here are playing a translator role. They're saying, he said this, so this is what it means to you guys.
Correct.
Would you stand by that?
Correct.
Okay, so the Pharisees say that after 3 days I will rise. This is what the Jewish person said. Therefore, so in your language, order the tomb to be made secure until the third day. Now, I know you said that it was ordered until the third day so that the disciples wouldn't steal it, but it makes no sense to keep them there, because by this command, it means after the third day they can do whatever, because after that the disciples can still do whatever they want, as long as it's to cover the span of the prophecy made by Christ.
Correct. Now, the question I have for you, when you go to Matthew chapter 12, verse 40, you said that was a Hebrew colloquialism. Now,
by colloquialism, I'm saying like Jesus said it this way, and therefore he's translating it so that the Romans can understand it in their own language. That's what I mean by colloquialism.
Gotcha. Now, so what you're saying, if I hear you correctly, you're saying that the reason why the Pharisees said it that way is because it was a way in which the Romans would have understood it, but the way that Yeshua said it to the people would have been in a way that they would have understood it as far as evening to evening, right? Because he's including the night and the day. Is that what you're saying?
So this is where I'm coming from. I see time the same way that the Romans see time.
Gotcha.
So whatever it means for the Romans, it means for me.
Okay.
And so it doesn't really matter what Jesus meant, because the Pharisees themselves are doing the translating. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense.
So if I'm gonna put it in terms of translating languages.
Sure.
I don't have to figure out what it means in the Hebrew because I have a Jew translating into Greek. Hypothetically speaking, if I were a Roman and I spoke this language, you get what I'm saying?
I got you.
So like, I don't have to go to Jesus and be like, oh, what did you mean by this? Because they're telling me what he means in my own cultural way. You know, does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I follow.
And so Jesus's after 3 days is my until the third day. And it makes no sense to keep them there shorter than that or longer than that based on, because the disciples can come steal him after, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
The only downside to that would be, it wasn't within the time span of the prophecy made by Christ. Not, it takes away the disciples' ability to come steal the body. And so I maintain the idea that until the third day is the equivalent of after 3 days. And so if I, as a Roman, measure time the same way that Romans measure time until the third day, like on the third day, it would hold that. Does that make sense?
Gotcha. So my question would be, how were the days reckoned? So you're saying the day that they were speaking to the Romans, was that considered a day? The first day? Was that the second day? What day was that where they was having that speech with the Romans?
And I can't tell you off the top of my head.
Okay, no problem.
I'm not even gonna try to pull that one. I ain't even gonna try to pull it out.
No problem. So I was just asking that because if your stance is that Sunday was that third day and it was up until that day, so I'm assuming that you're saying that when they got there to the tomb, right? Mary and them got to the tomb, and the soldiers were supposed to be on watch, right? And the stone was there and it was sealing it, right? So are you saying that when it says until the third day, that Sunday was representative of one of those 3 days, and that would have been the last day? When they said up until the third day, then that would have been that Sunday morning. That day, is that what I'm saying?
Until the third day includes the third day.
Gotcha. So then that would be that Sunday, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So that means the previous day would be the second day, right? And that would be Saturday, you're saying. Correct? And then you're saying that the previous day before that would be that Friday. So if the previous day was Friday, remember, they gave you 6 hour to ninth hour on. So they're giving you periods of time. They give you evening. So the question would be, when was that first day that was counted? So if Sunday during the daylight portion and during the sunrise, when they went to the tomb, is the until the third day, and including the third day, like you said, that second period of time would be sunrise to sunset. I'm assuming that Saturday, and then that first day would be that Friday. So if that first day is Friday, are you saying that even though when this conversation happened, he was already buried in the evening? Because remember, the text tells you what's going on, right? So if you go to Matthew chapter 27, go back to Matthew chapter 27, and you read where it says his body got buried in the evening before the Pharisees had a discussion with Pilate. So you can't say that that's considered a day when he's already in a grave, unless you're saying, well, they're including that Friday entire day as one of the days, and then Saturday would be that second day, and then Sunday would be that third day.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. They're including Friday as that day.
Okay, so now, the reason why I'm saying this is I see that's your position, and what I'm doing is I'm reinforcing the position that a lot of Christians have, and some Christian scholars, is that's how they reconcile it, right? But that is not the only stream. And matter of fact, that stream has been challenged as of late, right? And the reason why is because more information has to go into extracting from previously how time is reckoned. And again, when Yeshua is speaking to the people in Matthew chapter 12, verse 40, right? He says, for as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the great fish, so the Son of Man will be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. So now this is what I'm going to say. If Yeshua is the central character in this narrative, then I'm going to have to look at what he's saying first and understand what he's talking about before I deal with the Romans, before I deal with the Pharisees, because if he's the fulfillment of prophecy, it's what he says that we have to hinge the rest of the narrative on. Now, mind you, if you believe, do you believe that Jesus is God?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. So if you affirm that Jesus is God, that means Jesus can't lie, correct?
That is affirmative.
And then that means anybody outside of him could lie and could be wrong, correct?
That is true.
Gotcha. So if all of that is true, then he should be the basis that we hinge everything on before we even get to chapter 27. Matter of fact,
well, I have let me tell you the only problem that I have with that. It's not a matter of what did Jesus say. It's what did Jesus mean. And you have to, in order to understand meaning, you have to put it into context. Not only, and so like the process of putting anything into context involves understanding something from your own personal point of view. That's why Jesus talks in parables. That's why the Pharisees had to relate time to Pilate. That's why, I don't know, that's why you look up Greek, because there has to be some sort of translation from the language spoken to the language that you yourself speak. And so figuring out, what Jesus means by the Son of Man, like you have to go figure that out. You know what I'm saying? You can't look at that and just have it merely mean, he was born by a man, because it has more meaning than that. You know what I'm saying? And so that by saying, what did Jesus say? And everybody else falls under the possibility of lying. I think it's a little misleading, because you have to, in considering what he says, you have to consider what he means. And so if I looked at Esther when she said, go and gather all the Jews to be found in Susa and hold a fast on my behalf, and do not eat or drink for 3 days, day or night. And I say, you know what, we gonna leave it at that. We gotta go by what she says, not by what she means. Verse 5 would just be irrelevant when it says on the 3rd day.
But how is that irrelevant? That just means 3 days occurred from that time period in which it was said to the time in which the narrative continues on.
Well, so this is what I'm saying, because within the passage of Esther that I'm giving you, there's a translation that's occurring. And so she says for 3 days, day or night. So
you said it says day or night?
Yes, that's what the verse says.
Okay.
I can read. You want me to read it again?
No, I'm not looking at it. That's what I was asking. Let me get it too, so that way I can follow you. And also what I wanted to bring out in regards to you saying what Jesus means. In the realm of academia, you have what's called ipsissima verba or ipsissima vox. And I don't know if you're familiar with those terms.
Nah, go ahead, speak that knowledge.
What'd you say?
I said, go ahead, spit that knowledge. I don't know anything about this.
So ipsissima verba, it means his literal or exact words, right? And this all has to do with the text being written. The argument is the narrative of the synoptic gospels or the gospels in general, are they truly capturing the exact words of Jesus, or are they ipsissima vox, just capturing the voice or his meaning?
Yeah, so, it's like versus sentiment. I got you.
Gotcha. So when you say it's not what he's saying literally, which would be ipsissima verba, it's ipsissima vox, the meaning, then that's why I bring up these terms to see maybe if you're familiar in how academia tries to address it. Now, mind you, everything that we say tonight, I'll be more than happy to send you a resource so you can, right?
So that book that you pulled up, I'm interested in that, but only if you can because I'm not about to read 200 something pages. If you can give me the I mean, I don't have time for it. I'm in nursing school right now. I'm doing a
that's cool.
I'm in a block that's sort of easy, and after this block, everything's probably going to pick back up.
Be difficult.
And so
what you can do is this.
You can send me like the important parts or the highlighted parts that you want me to see in that book. That'll be
thing about these sources is you have the table of contents, right? So in there, you can just go directly to what you want to know. So let's say you don't want to get a lot of the background context, but you just want to see what's the argument or the debate. You can go to conclusion matters and you can just get the summary through there, and that'll make it much easier for you to kind of grasp the notion of what.
I figured I could do that. I wanted to see the parts that you yourself deemed important for me to see. Because I mean, I can look in the book and be like, oh yeah, I like this, I like this, I like this. But I wanted to know that the points that you deemed important in the book.
Understood. So let me go to, you said Esther what?
You went out. Can you say that again?
Esther 4.
Yeah. Esther 4:15 to like chapter 5, verse 1.
Okay, so let me get that. So Esther 4:15. Okay, Esther 4:15. All right. Then Esther sent this reply. Well, let me go using ESV, right? Let's stick with ESV.
I mean, you can do whatever. I mean,
no. ESV is one of the academic standards, so we'll rock with that, right? Then Esther told them to reply to Mordecai, "Go gather all the Jews to be found in Susa and hold a fast on my behalf, and do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day." So here she's saying, hold the fast on my behalf and do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. So the 3 days of that day period to them concludes the evening and the day portion, right? So evening to evening is included the day or night. So she's saying it doesn't matter if it's during the day or at night. I for these 3 days, I don't want you to eat or drink. So she's not saying, okay, well, let me split the time up. All right, these nights don't do it, these days don't do it, or one night you could do it, one day. She's pretty much also using the reckoning of time, understanding that the Yahudim would have known at that time, which that a day or yom period consists of evening and the daylight portion. It's not just the daylight portion. So that's why she's saying to them, even though you're going to hold this fast, even when the daylight said in the night period or the night before, don't even do it then either. Don't just do it during the day portion. Don't do it at night either. Because again, let me give you an example. There's some people who in our community that argue about when the Sabbath is, right? Is the Sabbath full 24-hour period of evening to evening? Is the Sabbath just from sunrise to sunset? So my position, based on my research, and I'm saying this to you to give context to what we're reading here in Esther, is that the seventh day, and when I say day, I'm talking about what you would understand as 24-hour period. The seventh day is considered a Sabbath day, which means this is the day in which rest will take place. But then the scriptures also give the word Shabbaton, and in Hebrew, the on suffix is a diminutive, which means it's a small, it's a more minuscule portion of what the root word is. And in this case, it's the Sabbath, which means, yes.
Wait, but when you say Shabbaton, is that Greek or is that Hebrew?
That's Hebrew.
Okay.
All right. And this is why when I said the word Shabbaton, when you do transliteration from Hebrew to Greek, that's why I went back and I pointed that word out to say that's a transliteration from something, right? But Shabbaton is referring to the daylight period. And in Hebrew understanding, and we have various sources that speak on this, when the sun rises, that's when you begin work. But the evening before, when the sun sets on the daylight portion of the 6th day, going into the evening portion of the 7th day, all work that's normally done is secluded to the indoors where preparation is done, because when that daylight period comes up, when the sun comes up, you must cease and stop and desist everything. Cannot do anything. So when a fast is done, and again, keep this understanding, when a fast is done, a lot of times it's done normally during the day. And at night, people will eat. So when you see a situation where she's saying this to them to say, okay, do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day, she's referring to two different components of that day that she's referring to that is prefixed with the numerical 3. And this is what she's referring to. So if we take that and relate that back, and let's keep reading like you said, and it says, I and my young women will also fast as you do. Then I will go to the king, though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish. Mordecai then went away and did everything as Esther had ordered him. So look, verse 17 is he did everything that Esther said, which means all of that already commenced. Going into verse 5, it says, on the 3rd day, Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the king's palace in front of the king's quarters while the king was sitting on his royal throne inside the house on the opposite side of the entrance. And then we go into the rest of the text. Here, it doesn't say anything about her breaking her fast. It doesn't say anything about her eating. Does it say anything about her eating in chapter 5?
Well, the thing that I'm saying is, the thing I'm implying is not that she broke her fast, but rather the way you interpret the length of time is defined by 5:1. So like, let me explain what I mean. So, in your explaining times, I've noticed that it's from a strictly Hebraic viewpoint. And so a lot of the times, because it's not as concrete, it's not as tangible as I would like it, it's harder for me to conceptualize exactly what time of day. So like, so you speak, evening to evening, or half of a day, and splitting days and not splitting days. And in my mind, I'm constantly thinking, yeah, but what does that mean? And so the way you would explain it, you would be like, Esther 4:16. And all I'm asking is, so what does 5:1 mean? And
so 5:1, okay, good.
Well, I'm using an analogy. I'm not literally asking what that means.
Gotcha.
So my point is when Esther says for 3 days, night or day, and then it says then she went and did this, my mind will automatically want to assume that it has been 72 hours from whenever you start, whether you start at 6 in the morning, 6 at night, it doesn't really matter, because it's been 72 hours from that starting point. That is how my mind would want to naturally do that. But when I get to 5:1, it says on the 3rd day. And so I have to rearrange what does after 3 days actually means.
So this is my question to you. When did Esther eat again?
On the 3rd day.
Okay, so if she ate on the 3rd day,
I can't speak for when she actually ate, but when did the fast end?
Read verse 8 in chapter 5. Read verse 8.
Say that again.
Read verse 8 in chapter 5.
She prepares a feast the day after that.
So does it say that she ate prior to that?
What'd you say?
Does the text say that she ate prior to verse 8?
Well, so this is, hold on. So when you look at 4:16, she says, don't do this for 3 days, night or day. I and my young women will also fast as you do.
Okay.
Then, so that word then, does that not imply after the fast is over? Regardless of if she eats after the fast or not. But does the word then imply that the fast is over?
I guess it can, but what happens is in verse 1 in chapter 5, on that 3rd day, she's doing something, the 3rd day of that fast. That doesn't mean she ate on that 3rd day, but there's something that she's doing that the text or the narrative is trying to give you some information on. But it doesn't say that she ate on that 3rd day. She says, if I have found favor in the sight of the king, and if it please the king to grant my wish and fulfill my request, let the king and Haman come to the feast. I will pray for them, and tomorrow, as I will do as the king has said. So now, during the daytime period, this is what she's saying to him, right? During the daytime period, I'm assuming this is when this is happening, right? And then it says tomorrow she would do as the king says, because she's still during that fasting period, according to what you're saying, the word then and on the 3rd day. It doesn't say anything about her eating just yet. But when we continue to read it, it says, and Haman went out that day joyful and glad of heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, and he neither rose nor trembled before him, he was filled with wrath against Mordecai. Nevertheless, Haman restrained himself and went home, and he sent and brought his friends and his wife. And Haman recounted to them the splendor of his riches, the number of his sons, all his promotions, etc., etc.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. You think that her eating is the indicator of the end of the fast, but
Correct.
I know that if I go on a fast, I don't necessarily eat right when my fast is up. You know what I'm saying? I can wait until after whenever I choose to eat, but the designated time of the fast, that's when the fast is up, regardless of if I eat or not. My eating does not demarcate the ending of the fast.
Yes, but what I'm saying is there's no indication there that she ate anything on that third day.
Yeah, and you're looking for her eating as a mark for when the fast ends, and I'm not. Does that make sense?
No, I see where you're coming from, but I guess this is where we disagree.
Yeah.
Because within the context, it doesn't say anything about her eating, which means she didn't break her fast. She maintained her fast.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to insinuate in any way that she broke her fast at all.
I thought you said she did earlier. That's what
no. I'm sorry. I did not mean to make you think that.
Oh, okay, cool.
My bringing this up isn't to imply that she broke her fast or didn't keep her word, but rather that based on subsequent verses and just the use of the word then, at least in my mind, I don't really see how that can mean during the fast.
So let me ask you this, so we can sum it up a little bit now, because we've been on here a little bit long, which is okay with me, but I wanted to transition and do a let me ask you this so you can sum it up from your angle, because mind you, the purpose of me having this dialogue was really for whoever the person that got on to share this information with me. 2 other people were sent invites who wanted to have this type of dialogue. They did not show up.
Yeah.
I'm glad you did, because you are very respectful. You're very down to earth. Me and you are having a dialogue as opposed to a debate or an argument. And that's the type of positive
or something
we need amongst our community. Now, I don't know how you know Daylon. I don't know how you know him, right? I'm sure that you're cool with him, right?
Yeah, he's cool.
Okay. And you know what his worldview is, right?
I'm feeling it out, but more or less, yeah.
Okay. So what I'm saying is I have a similar worldview. And what I've noticed is that a lot of times that with discussions, because people want to come and fight and argue, I didn't come to fight and argue. I simply want to come to hear your piece. And I realize that what you're sharing with me is something valuable within your community that people convey. And what you're saying, now I don't know if you're aware of it, but what you're saying is exactly the perspective that those in your community hold. So you may, by proxy of just speaking, represent them, maybe not intentionally, but by proxy of just being within that community. That is pretty much how they convey their understanding of, what 3 days and 3 nights is, and then etc. So that's why I just want you to sum it up using Esther, which is good. What you're doing is you're doing subject matter analysis. You're looking at the subject matter of reckoning of time when the term 3 days is being used. You're looking for other passages in the text that agree with that, and you're trying to use these pieces of information and put it together and trying to find some way of synchronizing this information together. And with that, trying to have a pure stream, so that way when you're translating to somebody, you can say, look, according to this context, based on what we read previously, building up to this point, this is the best way to translate this in regards to Friday to Sunday, because we have to make certain presumptions based on the events that was happening and the information that we're getting from other passages, right? So what I would like for you to do is, if you can just sum up for me, I know you want to have a dialogue with me, and that's fine, but because it's getting late, I just want you to give your final piece. Please sum up for us, factoring in the Esther scripture that you put on the table, Matthew 12:40, where Jesus is saying 3 days and 3 nights, and Matthew chapter 27, what verse is that?
63 to 64, I think.
64. In regards to the Pharisees saying 3 days.
Just state my position in a succinct way.
Yeah, you could do that, or you could just give your conclusion, right? Yeah. And summarize it in your conclusion. So go ahead. I'm gonna let you rock.
Okay. I like how you say that. I'm gonna let you rock. So for all the people who I'm supposed to be representing. I apologize if I'm not speaking what you say. My intent wasn't to represent anybody really except myself. I didn't even know I was going to be talking today. I thought I was just going to be watching a live chat, just playing a passive role. My friend Delon tagged me in this thing, and I was like, okay, I mean, I'll check it out. He sent me the link, and I came in, and I just went with the flow. I haven't looked at anything pertaining to Easter or the resurrection or a burial or anything like that in a very long time. So I'm rusty dusty. But in short, my position is this: in order to understand how long Jesus was in the grave. So like if you take something like for 3 days and 3 nights, and you have something that seems to conflict with that, you have to decide which has the underlying meaning. And so when considering what is said versus what is meant, I think I mean, it just, whatever you decide takes the underlying meaning is going to dictate quote unquote what's being said, if that makes any sense, or at least your understanding of what's being said. And so based on, things like Esther 4 verses 15 through chapter 5:1, the conversation between the Pharisees in Matthew 27, the example that we didn't really get to go over in 1 Kings 20:29, where it says for another 7 days and then on the 7th day. By using those examples, and I left an extra biblical source in the Talmud. By using those things, the only thing that I had to do today was show that it was plausible for, I don't know if there's any disagreement on the day that Christ rose. I hold that he rose on Sunday. And so if it is plausible, I'm not saying that this is the way, but if it can be defended that 3 days and 3 nights can mean something different to my Americanized ears, if I can show that scripturally speaking, or even extra biblically speaking, that this could be a thing, then it's okay to hold that view. And I think my goal wasn't to say that, hey, Ron Shields is wrong, the position that he holds is wrong. My position isn't to say it couldn't possibly mean what he is saying, but only to defend the position that I myself am holding. I think I've done that. I don't think that at least I hope I haven't misrepresented his view at all. I wanted to give him the floor and let him talk so I can understand from a different point of view, to check and make sure. And I'm glad he's given me these references. And if I have time, I'll definitely look over those things. But as for now, to verify, to internally critique his view, I have to know what he knows. And at the moment, I cannot say that I know what he knows, so I can't really verify or deny the claims that he makes. I can't really internally critique his own view. So at best, all I could do is compare his view to my view. But I mean, that's not really what I came here to do. I came here to defend my own view, and that is that Christ was buried, at least to say that it is possible that Christ was buried Friday, was in the grave Saturday, and rose Sunday. Yeah, that's all. I'm tired though.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, my brother. Your name is Deshaun, right?
Deshaun Jeffries.
Deshaun Jeffries. Jeffrey. That's interesting, because my cousin's last name is Jeffries. Wow. So I appreciate your time, Deshaun. Man, you are welcomed on here anytime. You have deliberated in a way that did not come off as intimidating, disrespectful. Your demeanor is very laid back. You respected the platform. You didn't use any vulgar language to convey your perspective. And, just so you know, what I have to deal with, right? So I engage a lot of Christian.
I'm sorry. I think there's this. Hold on. I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off, but I saw this one clip somebody posted was in that little group page that we're on. I'm assuming she holds a Christian viewpoint, or at least a traditional Christian viewpoint. She was like, "Is that Ron Shields? I do not like Ron Shields." And I was like, "Oh man, poor guy. He can't even talk."
It's very unfortunate, because whenever people who follow this channel, they know that this is typical of my discussions with people, right? Like, I spoke to a brother yesterday, and he was extremely passionate. When you go look on the comments he left on the Facebook page, most people would have blocked him or be like, nah, I'm not going to dialogue with him. But I said, you know what? I'm going to open up the floor to have a dialogue with him, because even though his position seemed very adversarial on the surface, I realized that it came from a deep-seated place of passion and zeal. And a lot of times that passion and zeal is not directed properly, right? It's not honed properly. So sometimes it comes out very rough and rugged. But during the process of our discourse, even with him being extremely passionate, my disposition and demeanor that I strove to maintain during the discourse of our dialogue was able to allow him not to be on a defensive, even though he was passionate. And then at the end of the discussion, we were still brothers, right? So that is the type of energy that is conveyed on this channel, and anybody that has watched it for some time can attest to that. So when you hear somebody like Sister Cherry, saying, "Oh," when she says stuff like that, and the question is, well, what are you basing that on? Like if you ever get time and go through some videos on my channel, just look up the ones where I have discussions with people on my channel. I've even had debates on my channel, and people prefer to have, who's debated me, prefer to do it on my channel because it's moderated fairly. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out, why does she have an issue when, in that case scenario, and no mean to, go on a divergent path, but since you brought it up, on that panel, there was a diversity of Christians with different Christian backgrounds. I'll give you an example. So Real, who now wants to have a discussion, debate with me, he has a Eastern Orthodoxy perspective. That perspective is different than 3 other people that I saw on that panel. So they don't have that same worldview, but yet the excuse was, oh, we just wanted to debate Sakari. We didn't want you to add somebody that's not Sakari on the panel, even though we are 5 or 6 different Christians on this panel with 5, 6 different perspectives and denominations, and we still want to try you. So I just thought that was unfair. And because I had a dialogue previously with Sakari about joining the panel, I didn't know that I was excluded from being on any platform. Like, if I knew that, I wouldn't have even asked, hey, would you like me to come on? Yeah, so with that being said, Deshaun, what I want to say is, I truly appreciate you giving your feedback in the way that you did. I'm sure if you're given enough time to prepare and you are not tired, that you will have a great dissemination in regards to your perspective. And I want to hear more about it, right? Because I don't know if you subscribe to a Christian denomination. I don't know what your take is on salvation or soteriology, eschatology. I don't know any of these things, right?
That's about as specific about my faith as I can get. A Trinitarian.
Trinitarian. Okay. Are you a Calvinist?
I don't know yet. I really don't know.
Okay. All right. Okay. So we can have discussions on that, because I'm very versed when it comes to Christian denominations.
Yeah.
Because before I identify as an Israelite, I was a Christian. I was into Christian apologetics, right?
Yeah.
So when I encounter people like Vocab Malone, when we initially encountered each other, it was kind of ugly, right? But we had a discussion recently, and it wasn't as ugly. And there was a lot of mitigating circumstances that kind of predisposed that discussion to go the way that it did, which I'll elaborate, in another video. But usually when I talk to Christian apologists, they automatically come with this defensive mindset, like they want to fight and argue, and they never want to listen. Your perspective, the way you voiced it, very clean, very clear, and well representative of your community. I'm able to understand, and the audience was able to pick up on it. If you watch the chat, this chat that I got, sometimes that can be really savage. You know what I'm saying? When people come on here, but
how do I watch the chat?
They learn from you, right? Because of your demeanor, your disposition, they was able to get something. They was able to glean from what you said. And the more conversations we have like this, even in disagreement, we can still learn and be edified. And that's one thing that I seek to do, is that in the midst of a disagreement, what can I learn? And if that's the first thing that we put before wanted to fight or debate with somebody, what can I get out of this? What can I learn? What can transform my character to be better? Even if it's patience, even if it's
sometimes it be like that, man. All I can learn is patience.
Sometimes you'll hear people talk about Hebrew Israelites, and the thing that comes to mind is that we're abrasive and we'll curse you out and we're angry, but then you'll get individuals who do not fit that mold, because I could say Westboro Church.
And then they start challenging you like, oh, shoot.
Have you heard of Westboro Church before? Westboro Baptist Church?
That rings a bell.
Look them up. Now, you want to talk about some extremists within Christianity?
Oh, yeah. They came to my campus. Yeah.
Oh, they did? Oh, yeah.
Wow.
They camp outside of churches and put up signs and all of that. Like, and
they were in the amphitheater saying everybody was going to hell.
Oh, yeah. If you watch
you could go up and be like, hey, I'm a Christian too. They're like, oh, you too.
Exactly. So there's a lot of groups. That's just the one that's more publicly known. There's a lot of Christian groups that are like that, but I don't use that as a pretense before I have a discussion with somebody that has a different faith than me, right? I realize that people are mostly, honestly, only speaking from what they know and where they want to go. And a lot of times what I try to do is I try to see what's their destination before I judge the path that they're on. Yeah. Right? Because if you just look at a person for the journey where they're at, but you're not trying to get the foresight to see where they're going.
Yeah, you judge them according to yourself as opposed to judging them by themselves. Like by themselves. You know what I'm saying? Internal.
Correct. So like I said, let me wrap it up. I'm gonna let Andrew say a couple of words real quick before we close out, if he's still there. Thank you for joining the platform. I understand what your position is. The audience understood what your position is. I voiced what my position was. Yes, you know, when I speak, a lot of the information can be inundating because I study a lot. You know what I'm saying? I research a lot. And simply the reason why I do that is because I interface with people on a scholarly level, as opposed to, and in addition to people on a layman level. So a lot of times when I speak, it's information that's coming from different streams, right? So it can come from scholarly things that I've looked at, and it can come from just layman stuff. Like I said, oh, let me rock in. That's my boy. So sometimes I use that kind of slang as well to kind of like take the tone from being too superior to a point where people can actually relate to it. And then it's easy for them to digest the background information. And then at the same time, I'm honest enough to say, look, whatever sources I use is free for you to use as well. If you want it, I'll give it to you, because that's the only way that you can truly ascertain whether a person is really capable of being able to hold a dialogue with you, is if they have the same tools that you have. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if you got it. I tried to send you a friend request, but it's like you're too famous to get more friends, and so I couldn't do that.
I'm gonna put listen, somebody gets deleted or removed, I got you. If Daylon, my brother Daylon, if he co-signed you, which he did, that's the only reason why I was like, let me invite this guy. If he didn't co-sign you and you were just some random person, I probably, even though you would have been cool, I would have never known that. I probably wouldn't have had a dialogue with you. But the other people, they were tagged because they were co-signed by people as well. So off the strength of that, I said, okay, let me open up the dialogue, right? The one I had yesterday, nobody co-signed this person. He just jumped in my post, started going wild, cursing and everything like that. But we was able to resolve our differences. But thank you, Deshaun, again, so much for representing Christianity well.
Hey,
right?
I know we're supposed to be wrapping up and stuff, but you mentioned something about the middle of the week, and I was wondering if you got everything out that you wanted to say about that.
No, but we can pick this up some other time, only because under 2 hours and we're going on almost 3 hours, right?
Oh, shoot,
so yeah, you need to get some sleep and I need to get some rest as well. So I will continue that with you either privately or in another session, and I can give that information out to you and we both can examine it together. But in closing, what I want to say that you represented Christianity well on tonight. And if people that I dialogue with, if they give me a hard time and they're Christians, I'm just gonna let you know your name might come up, okay? And I'm gonna reference this video to them. So you're for me going forward.
Okay, I police Christians and defend myself when need be.
You're gonna be my point of reference when I dialogue with these Christian apologists that be going buck wild and crazy. You know what I'm saying? So thank you, my brother, for gracing us with your presence, for representing Christianity well, for being able to disseminate your perspective and do so very clearly, even with the few words that you said. I think you did a probably better job than me. When I talk, it's just a whole lot of information in my head that comes out. So sometimes
you just like don't lie.
It's time for me to streamline it as the dialogue goes through. But I like to put it all on the record, so when people go back and watch the video, they can say, "Wow, he said this," and let me go back and research it. Let me go, and what it does is it just opens up for people to have more depth. I call it a well, right? When I talk, I like to dig a well and fill it with information. So that way, whenever there's a famine and people need something to read or something to watch to get information, when they go back to these videos, you can just listen to the various things that I said. And just like a well, in the times of famine, you can, take the well and let the pail down, and you can always bring something up. So that's why I like to say a lot of things that seem deep, but typically it's just things I put on record for people to go back and research, right? So yeah. So thank you for that. Like I said, you're welcome anytime on this platform. You have a good evening, a good night. Get your rest, do what you got to do tomorrow, and we will talk again, my brother Deshaun. All right?
All right, bro.
All right. Peace and shalom.
Shalom.
All right. So I'm going to give Matthew, Shema, since you on here, I'll give you a few minutes as well. But before you go, Andrew, are you there, Andrew?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Awesome. All right, Andrew. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to say whatever you want to say. You can comment on what we said. You can add further to it. You can just whatever. Give you 5 minutes. I'm sorry for the shortening of time. I didn't know the dialogue was going to be that long, but I want to give you at least 5 minutes for hanging on this whole time. And then I'm going to transition to Mom, give him 5 minutes, and then I'm going to close out. All right. So you got the floor, Andrew.
I only need about 30 seconds, I think. Just what I put in the comments there, thought was relevant. The rest of the article wasn't, because it says we don't know what they meant by 3 days and raising on the third day. Guess that's the first one. I don't know why you went to Esther. That kind of confused me for a little bit. I guess that's really it. And of course, Yom being the word for day could mean anything. And I've known that for a little while. And that's me.
And that's excellent. You're right. Yom can mean 24-hour period, 12-hour period, daylight period, or it could just be figurative. You know what I'm saying?
Or it can mean millions of years.
Exactly. Yo, Andrew, I got to have you back on, man. We got to have a dialogue about something we disagree with so we both can learn from each other. All right?
I disagree with people on a lot of things, but the main thing I disagree with people is when they call me a white devil.
Now, that's a different subject matter altogether. And on this platform, I don't tolerate that because that is indifferent to the actual dialogue, right? So,
I totally agree with you. I mean, I've come from a lot of Calvinistic background, Baptist background now, in and out of the Baptist church. I was evangelical Anglican for a little while, which is not, what's the one in America? Always stuff up on it. Episcopalian. I don't believe that. Yeah.
So being into those different denominations, you've garnered a lot of knowledge and understanding and stuff like that. So that's valuable to have a discourse with, because you can speak from any one of those angles. Because
I hope so.
you actually engaged it. So if and again, like I said, my chat can be savage sometimes, right? So I apologize for them.
I'm used to savage chats.
You know what I'm saying? But in regards to me dialoguing, that type of language to me is unnecessary, because I simply want to see what the other person's worldview is. And if there are contention, to be able to lay it out so that way the audience can clearly see what it is without the ad hominems. And we can just deal with specifically what that point of contention is, to see how much edification we have. And I say this to people. The reason why I may disagree for sport is because I want to learn something. If people are yes men all the time, and I'm not saying everybody is, a lot of people may be, they may not be, but what I'm saying is I look for points of contention in regards to discourse, not fighting argument, simply because I want to learn something. I want somebody to teach me, show me things, bring things out, teach me, give me sources, references, scriptural backing, your exegesis, teach me. Because even though I may know some of the stuff you're saying, there's stuff that I may not know. And you may have some kind of wisdom there, Sophia, which we say in the Greek, or Hokmah, which we say in the Hebrew. There may be some kind of wisdom there that is conveyed as you're deliberating your information that I may learn from. And I can say, wow, you know what? I didn't even think about that. That's why when I talk, I like to pepper it with those little things here and there, so that people may not be even listening for the huge dialogue, but listening to say, man, what can I take from this? So I try to give a couple of final things and say, hey, take this from the discussion. But I don't even know, how'd you get to this channel, Andrew? I don't know.
Probably via vocab or one of the others.
Oh, that's right. That's
Sister
right.
Cherry, maybe. I don't necessarily agree with the way she treats all of her guests, but you know, I also live with Asperger's syndrome, so socializing for me is a lot of courage to even get out and do anything.
And
I commend you. And it's only thing like, you know, I get into all of the way I got into apologetics was at my church at the moment is a guy called Dan Patterson who works for Ravi Zacharias Ministries.
I know who Ravi Zacharias is. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my connection to sort of apologetic stuff. And I've found sort of stuff like that, you know, David Wood, and you kind of go, oh, yeah, I'll subscribe to this channel. And then, of course, there's the Karahite Jews that I subscribe to as well. Although out of Sister Cherry and the Karahite Jews, they seem to just have cut me off for whatever reason. Because they don't interact with me in the chat. Like the other day when I was in the chat with them, they were saying, "Oh, who's that? Oh, must be my first wife." So one of the others is like, "Damn it, I am not a female."
I feel you. And again, you know, even like I said, what you just said as far as the connection with Ravi Zacharias, that's good to know. That the church that you're part of is affiliated with that, because that's somebody that I've followed when I was in Christianity. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that's something that we can even have a dialogue on that as well sometime. But I just wanted to give you a few minutes. Like I said, I commend you for even speaking, right? Because a lot of times people only see the cover and they don't see the story, right?
Exactly, and
right. Realize that there's pages in between that if you haven't read it, then you're missing the whole story, right? You can't get the reading the back or looking at the front. So the fact that you was able to push through and have this conversation, and from Vocab's channel that you over here, if you go back on that channel, and I'm not telling you have to do this, I'm just saying this for fun, and you hear them say something negative about Divine, you can say, well, I had a discussion with him. It's right on his channel. He didn't curse me out. He didn't go crazy on me. He let me speak. He even commended me for even giving 2 cents. And that's the type of courtesy that I extend, because that's the same thing that I expect people to give back in return.
Well, the first denomination we went into when we were in Queensland was Westminster Presbyterian Churches, which was ironically planted by missionaries from America.
Nice.
So that's the difference.
Yeah.
They don't exist anymore. Like all the churches have changed names or passed on. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Andrew, for your time, for your input, your feedback. Please, if you can, you're definitely welcome to chat and as well join the platform, depending upon the subject matter. I want to just say to you, get some rest and take care of what you have to take care of tomorrow. Thank you.
Sunday for me.
Sunday for you. Yeah. So you're right, because you're in, where are you at?
Australia.
I don't know if Dylan is in the chat, but he's also from Australia as well. I don't know where in Australia you at?
Brisbane. Okay,
I don't know if Dylan is there. I forgot where he told me where he was at, but if he shows up in the chat again, his name is Dylan, and he's also from Australia, and that's somebody that's also, he used to be a Jehovah's Witness.
It could be Sydney or Melbourne.
I think it was Sydney, but he'll comment when he's in here next time that you're in here, and I'll link you two up and you two can chat, because another thing I like to do is if people are in a similar region, and you know, as a country, you know what I'm saying? So one city could be here, another city could be on the other side of the desert, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, as long as it's not in Perth.
Exactly, but it's also good to know who's in your country, in the event that it's a possibility that you can bump in or meet up with that person and have even further edifying dialogue, you know what I'm saying? So he's a good brother, and you know, he's also from Australia. So next time he's in the chat, I'll let you know, and you two can chat. If you want to link up, you can. All right.
Ironically, I was born in Sydney.
Wow. Small world. Small world. Small world.
Anyway, sorry, I got a lot of rain going around at the moment. Brisbane's in storm.
It's all good. It's all good. So Andrew, go ahead and get some rest. And again, like I said, I'll bring you on again, depending upon the subject matter. But you're always welcome to chat. All right.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Anytime. Shalom.
Bye.
All All right, Shema.
What up, man?
Talmud, bro. You know, that it's your album. I keep thinking mixtape. That Hebrew Love album is fire. I'm just putting it out there. All right. So for the audience, the viewing audience, look this brother up on Facebook. His name on Facebook, because I always call him Shema. I don't even read the rest of it, but
I know.
I'm gonna let him introduce himself to you.
Yeah.
This is one of the marquee artists that was on the KHM mixtape volume 1, The Truth Works.
Hey, by the way, hot mixtape. I listened to it for the whole month and a half every day.
Wow, awesome. I appreciate that. But I'm gonna let him introduce himself, give a shout out to his album, and let him give his 5 minutes so he can give his feedback. As his brother always is very analytical, and he always gives great objective feedback. So go ahead, I'm gonna let you rock out.
Hey, I appreciate you. I'm gonna try to go fast in this 5 minutes. What I want to say is, first of all, the mixtape was amazing. I did like a few songs. I did one song, I think, and then I did like a couple features. But that mixtape was ridiculous, man. I listened to that about a month and a half. No lie. Not because you can remove me off of it, people that's listening, remove me off of it. And I was listening every day. Every day, man. Like, I actually want to contact DivineProspect or Ron Shields, what y'all would call him, whatever, to get a hold of a couple female artists on that was singing. She was amazing. I want to speak on some things, man. So time me, Divine, cut me off when I hit that 5 minute. I know some people looking at me like, oh, you don't got no hair, blah blah blah. You know, I'll let Divine handle that. You know,
I got you. You good?
I can't.
You good over here? Go ahead.
I don't do it, man. I mean, when people ask me, I'm willing to get into it, but you know, that's why I wear the kufis or the mitznafet or the mitznafet. Just to make sure I don't mess anybody's faith up. Anyway, let me go into a couple things, man. I want to say this brother, first of all, if he allowed me, if he would knight me, I want to be a part of KHM, man, because over my studies, I've been in the truth since like 2000, I don't know, 11, 12, maybe, whatever. You know, I say so-called truth. It's a reason why I do that. If y'all want to know why, I will say it. But I love our community. I love our nation. I do this because it's a lot going with that nation. And the reason I want to join KHM is because a lot of stuff that Divine is saying is what I agree with. You know, nation requires a lot. It's not just, oh, I'm a part of this, you know, because I got family members that say, you know, I'm Hebrew, I got a beard, I got dreads, but they don't do the things. Then you got war, a military. You got all this other stuff. He spoke on all this. That's not my job. I'm going to let him do what he do. But me and him going to chop it up as far as me getting knighted. And the brother Deshaun, man, I believe that I would love for y'all to talk more. Of course, Divine is more scholarly, experience, spread out, all of the above. But what I love about Deshaun is he admits that he's not that. But I think that he is a teacher. I think he can become a teacher. Somebody said in the chat, I was reading the chat, they said that he got a Gentile mindset. I understand where you're coming from. But but Gentiles wouldn't receive what, you know, Divine is saying. I done spoke with Vocab Malone. I am the person that introduced him to IOG, for those that might be listening, because I was a part of IOG. And recently I've been on a few of his posts. He will not respond to me. Nobody responds to what I'm saying. And I feel like Divine in that respect, because they don't want to respond to somebody that's objective and putting out a lot of facts and information from an objective standpoint. So going back to Divine, love what he's doing. Deshaun, he did his thing tonight, although he might have been, you know, but he admitted that he's not well equipped in that area. But I love his objectivity. As far as the brother who just spoke, You know what I'm saying? Hey man, check this man out. He's amazing. All praises to the Most High. Some say Yahuwah, some say Yahweh, some say all these other names. You know, I go by Yah or Yahuwah as well. And I just wanted to say that I appreciate the platform. I appreciate the information that's given. I appreciate those that's in the chat, because I'm looking right here, but I'm looking at all y'all speaking right now. I think that we all have to grasp what the character that Divine is presenting. A lot of us, we have so much passion. We're kind of like the brother that he spoke with. You know what I'm saying? Some are like him, some are a little under or above from a standpoint of presentation. But we got that same spirit. We just got to take it in, because the only way to learn and to present our information in an objective way is to understand how to approach the situation. So I just want to say I loved it. It was amazing. I hope people agree. If they disagree, that's fine. But that's it, man. I ain't about to promote myself. He did it on his the mixtape. Mixtape amazing.
When is Hebrew Love dropping, man? That's all I want to know.
Okay.
Tell us.
Okay, Hebrew. Okay, man. See, that's why I love him. He go promote me too. That's what's up. Hebrew Love Volume 1 will be Friday next week. Of course, you already know I'm sending it to you, and I'm sending it to 2 other people to give me their perspective of the order, right? I have my order of how I want to do it, but I want to get the listeners' order of what they would like. So I just did the last song today. I didn't finish it because it's whatever. But it should be done. And I know you said Wednesday. I know you said Wednesday. I'm going to try to get it to you by Monday, because, man, I think I don't hear a lot of R&B artists in our community. I do not. I know some great singers. I know some great artists out there, writers, whatever. But I do not hear a lot of. I hear all hip hop. The last song I did some hip hop on it too, because I rap too. But that's it. That's all I got. DivineProspect, Ron Shields will be the one that's presenting it to all of y'all that don't know me. And hopefully, you know what I'm saying, if you like the music, you know what I'm saying, friend me on Facebook or whatnot. And I at this point, I feel I want to be, if this man allows me to contribute the best way I can to KHM, because KHM is me. You know what I'm saying? That's his organization. That's his platform. But the character within it, the foundation of it. If you was to follow me 3 years ago, you will see that a lot of stuff that this man is presenting, he's just phenomenal. You know what I'm saying? All praise to the Most High. You know what I'm saying? Hallelujah, Yahuwah, Yahoo, or whatever. He does the great things, man. So that's it. That's all I got. I ain't going.
Awesome. I truly appreciate that, my brother. And you know, everything that you said is an honor to hear, right? And it helps me day by day to continue on with the assignment the Most High has given me. My brother Shema, from the time that I've known him, has grown exponentially in regards to his walk and his application of the walk, right? He's a phenomenal artist. And every time you have a mixtape, he may be on there. So don't get sick if you hear him, but he's gonna make it nice every time you hear it, right? And that's his thing, like he said, the Hebrew R&B. And he's doing a lot, and with the capacity that he's able to. Now, if he's a part of KHM, we will enable him to do more, because that's all we do is extract the greatness and put in front of you what's already there. And sometimes we need somebody to be able to talk that greatness out, that once we're able to acknowledge it, we can do profound things for our community, right? So I thank the brother for his input, his feedback. You're going to see him more on this channel as we have other dialogues. He's also there in the chat. He's also on Facebook as well. When his album comes out, I definitely will be playing it on here. I'll show you how you can donate, so that way he can put out more music, because it's a lot of work and effort that's put behind these artists when they put this music together. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times we only get the finished product, but you don't know how much writer's block they had to go into, how much pain and experience and sometimes joy and, you know, sometimes, you know, not having to schedule the time to do it. Like they put their best foot forward to put this music together. So that's why for the KHM mixtape, I've hand selected individuals that I knew who were great artists, and I put them all on that album. All right. So Seek Out Righteous Music says, where are you brothers from? Northeast. Well, I'm originally from the Bronx in New York, but I'm in Atlanta, Georgia right now. Shema, you still in Chicago?
I'm from the west side of Chicago, but I live in Joliet.
Okay, so he's from Chicago. So Seek Out Righteous Music, if you do music, Shema, put your email in the chat so he can link up with you. Okay. All right. And Rob Norris, he's a producer and a writer. And he's been saying this, I mean, like every time I see him, he throws that out there. Rob, email me, Rob. Email me. All right. Email me. Because I definitely have a lot of projects you can definitely be on. You know what I'm saying? And all of this is to benefit the community. You know what I'm saying? So email me. Here's the email address if you want to email me. My brother, One Mind, One Body was goody. But yeah, email me. So Jose Q, in this discussion, I didn't get to Easter, right? Because Easter is not even in the New Testament, right? It's Pascha. It's not even Easter. But Easter is not in the New Testament, and it was superimposed onto the text via the translation based on the tradition that was being followed by the translators at that time. That's how it made its way there. But that's a separate discussion. I'll go into the origins of Easter, but this discussion was just to deal with it from a spiritually, culturally, and scripturally point of view. And like I mentioned in my lecture in regards to the calendar, whoever's feast days or holidays you follow, they control the day, wake, biological clock that's in your body, because every cell in your body is attuned to a particular time cycle. And if you readjust the natural order the Most High has placed you in and fixate it to keep the holidays and feast days of another culture, another people, another society, then what you're doing is you're aligning your body, your mind, and your soul to their will. And what I did was I went into the science of that in the lecture. So you'll go back and check that out if you're interested in that, and you'll see more information on that. So that's why this is extremely important in regards to these holidays, what they mean, and what is the implication if we align ourselves in practicing it. And that's from my perspective, right? So shout out to Door of Ellen in the building. All right, fam, I'm about to close out. Hit one real quick. If you want to shout out, there's people in there that want to donate. You can donate by hitting the super chat button. Also, after this video is over, the links of donations will be in the description. Social media information will be in the description, and you guys can support, follow, inbox, message me that way as well. I put the email address there if anybody's interested in the email address. Some people also want to donate via Cash App. So what I'll do is I'll give you the Cash App, so that way you guys have the Cash App as well. And shout out to the people who sent donations via Cash App yesterday. We got a couple of donations yesterday. I want to thank everybody that donated yesterday. Even if you didn't donate, thank you for thumbing up the video, for sharing the video, because I've gotten a lot of people reaching out after that video. Like I said, it was almost 320 people that was watching that discussion. And
you almost hit 200 today.
Yeah. I've peaked at 5 something before. This was like maybe an event 2 years ago. But what I'm saying is I want quality as opposed to quantity, right? So if the people there are watching, if there's 500 people, I'm not concerned with the people watching. I'm concerned with the people that's giving input, right? Because if people is giving input and they're engaging the content, then I know that those people that are coming here are here because there's some kind of substance that they want to gravitate towards. And if the discussions are not diplomatic and tactful like the way it is, it's going to be very difficult for anybody to learn anything on this channel. And that's what this channel is for. It's for me just to be a conduit to share information, to edify the community, so that way it can activate you to do something. I'm not just trying to fill your head. I'm trying to fill your heart, so that way you can give and you can do and you can change your community, right? You can provide or contribute something for the greater autonomous entity that we are to become according to the Most High's instructions while we're in captivity. You know what I'm saying? So I say this to end off by saying I thank everybody in the chat for giving their feedback. Again, I didn't get a chance to read or watch everything. I may not answer it right now. Sam Bone said, what's the date you're going to be in Detroit? If I'm not mistaken, the date we're going to be in Detroit is July 11th.
Really?
July 11th.
Really? I might have to come.
Well, this is a huge event. So it's not just like a small isolated. This is a huge Israelite event. There's workshops that's going to be there. Seminars that's going to be there. Lectures going to be there. There's going to be a award ceremony. There's going to be lecturers that's going to be there. There's going to be a fellowship. There's going to be a unity prayer. There's going to be a unity Shabbat service. There's going to be a boat cruise that they're going to have there, a dinner, all white affair. I mean, they're throwing everything in the kitchen sink in this event in Detroit. So it's going to be a huge, huge event. So if anybody can make it out in July, that would be great, because I'm going to be one of many other people there. There's going to be a lot of people that's going to be there. And that award ceremony is going to have a lot of leaders in the community that's getting various awards. And I choose not to say it, but you know, they're going to honor me with an award. So I greatly appreciate that. You know what I'm saying? I didn't ask for it, and I don't think I deserve it. But if the community feels like your contributions while you're alive is helping us today, we want to make sure you get your flowers while you're still here. And that's one thing that I want to continue to do to people, for people while they're alive, right? I want to appreciate them while they're there. I don't want to just make a big deal when they're dead, but while they're alive, I want to make sure that they know that they're loved, they're appreciated. We're here with you. We got your back, and we're going to do what we can to support you and push you forward. All right. So, Chris, if you need those garments, holla at me. Holla at me. Me and my Isha will set you up. All right. Rob Norris, you said you tried to send a message to my email. Are you using the correct email? Let me do it again. It should be the correct email. All right. So, family, let me get off. And the reason why I want to get off is because, man, I was supposed to do a second segment, and I am going to do it. It's just going to be very short. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to touch on a few things briefly, and take a few questions in the last 10 minutes, and then just have that out there. But I want to keep this separate for people to go back and watch this video. Put timestamps so they know when the discussion begins and where it ends. So they won't have to just get the last bit of fluff or the beginning 25 minutes before anybody join in. And then those individuals who didn't jump in this chat, I want everybody in this chat, I want y'all to inbox them.
Yes.
Inbox them this video. Let them know the discussion that they missed, because I was willing to have a panel of all Christians with just me and just dialogue with them. You know what I'm saying? And then when it came to the Q&A, I was going to bring some of y'all from the chat in on the panel to give y'all feedback, to interact with them and so forth. You feel what I'm saying? So let me end off here, family. Thank you for watching. I hope, excuse me, I hope you enjoyed the discussion that we had. It didn't feel like a debate. It really felt like an organic discussion, which was real. And I think Christians and Israelites watching this can both learn something from each other, and at the very least, how to dialogue with one another. You know what I'm saying? And that's what we have to put out there, because it's too often that we are stereotyped, right? So we're fighting an uphill battle. So when I approach things this way, where I'm laid back, I'm cool, I'm calm, I'm not trying to be intimidating, or I'm not trying to be aggressive. You got to understand that's a chess move. That's strategy. It's strategic, right? Because there's other brothers and sisters that's out there that there's other forms of Israelite evangelism that doesn't work for them. And sometimes it's easier for them to listen on this type of platform and wake up into the truth. So everybody has their lane, everybody has their flavor, everybody has their style, and we got to appreciate each other for what we do. But if we see a person in error, we're also to go and correct them as well, the best that we can. We don't have to humiliate them publicly, because I don't do that. But we got to address them privately and deal with them. And if they decide that they don't want to hear you, then you just separate from them and move forward. You feel what I'm saying? There's mature ways to deal with things, whether you're Israelite or whether you a secular individual. But we have a greater obligation because we represent Yah. All right. So with that, family, let me close out right now. You guys you said he did a video, someone else, the Esau. The name of that video is from Esau from it's called man, how did I forget what this is? Esau to Zion. I must be tired. Esau to Zionism is a part of it. Oh, who are the Edomites today from Esau to Zionism? That's what it is. And if you go, it's a video that did back in 2014. Since then, and that's been like 5 years. Since then, I've upgraded some of the information, but I would say 80% of it is still exact, right? I've upgraded some of the information with better sources and so forth. So I may go over it briefly. But again, go back, those of you who are new, please subscribe, hit the like button, the thumbs up button, please subscribe, hit the bell notification so you can get notifications when we go live, when we put content on this channel. If you have a business, email me at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. If you have a non-for-profit, email me at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com so we can promote your business, we can promote your non-for-profit, so that way other people in the community can know who's out there, who's doing what, because the name of the game, the end state is autonomy, which means we got to be self-governance by being able to allocate the resources that we have from the people that are part of this community, so that way it can be evenly distributed to those who have need, right? So we can be of one accord. And so that way when we get everything from within our community, now we can focus 100% on Yah, undisturbed, unfiltered, unbothered, and we can get him in his purest form by having other brothers and sisters who are equally agreeing to the root culture being a communal society or a common unity or common unified group. And then from there, we can ensure that governance is done righteously and is done with equity. All right. So yes, Ron Dalton is in that event, Rob Norris. So he will be at that event. Zion Lex will be there too, and a couple other leaders are going to be there as well. So there's going to be a lot of people there. I'm just one of many people. There's going to be a lot of other leaders there. All right. So again, if you have any Christians out there that want to defend Good Friday or Easter, Easter is on Sunday. So if they want volcanic plumes, which is the smoke that comes out of volcanoes, let them know they can get that work here. If we want to go into Easter Sunday, I don't have nothing prepared, but I can freestyle. I got all my resources and stuff at a whim's notice. I can just go click on my cloud and pull my data or whatever. But if anybody wants that smoke on Easter, if you want to defend Easter, let's get it. All right. Share this link. Let them know that I said it and we can get it. But also let them know that I ain't got to fight you in order to have a dialogue and prove my point. Right. And neither should they have to. If you got to fight and you cannot discipline yourself, it just means you're trying to overcompensate for something that you do not possess, which means that you're not fully baked enough to even have this type of diplomatic and tactful dialogue to be able to teach other people in the community. It takes a lot of work, effort, and even with me, I'm still not there, right? But with that being said, thank y'all for joining. Like I said, I'm gonna close it out now. Share this link with everybody. Let them know how it's done. Hopefully y'all learned from something from this, and I'm gonna continue on with the next session right after this, all right? I love your family. Again, if you want to support, if you want to follow me on social media, I'm going to put all of that in the description. Go back to the video, check out the description, and you'll have all the contact information there, all right? Love you, family. Thank you for watching. Peace and shalom.
Shalom.